sorry. And we have a panel discussion, and at 3:45 we have a panel related Q&A, question and answer session with Minna Taipale, who would be facilitating this panel discussion in Finnish as well as in English. Then we have at 4 o'clock the guest speaker, who is Linda Huoki. She is a PhD researcher, and her main research is about Islamophobia in Europe. And we have her as a guest speaker, like a Q&A, question and answers interview session with her. And the seminar should end at 5 o'clock, as said. So it can be a little bit more or less than that. So let me admit new people as they keep on joining. Okay. Okay, yes. You can view this program in, sorry, Finnish here. So and I'm going to be recording this seminar. So just so you know, if somebody has any issue with that, please let me know. Because we have a channel on YouTube. So we kind of upload our activities over there. So anyways, let's begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I would start by introducing Amal Ry. If you're not already familiar with this organization, it was founded in 2017 by a group of Muslim reverted sisters uh, who felt the need that there is a lot of social work happening here, which is very inclusive and very diverse, but not very religiously conscious work that was happening here, especially related to the Muslim women issues. So there was this need that was felt by them that we should have an organization which works as a religious conscious social work organization for Muslim women and girls currently. There is obviously a need for including the whole families, but as time goes on and we develop more activities, so you never know, inshallah, we do something for the whole inclusive uh, demographic. But Amal Ry is a third sector, a sector organization. It's a private NGO. It's not a government-related organization. And I'm just admitting people as I speak. So please, sorry, excuse me if I just pause a little. And it supports girls with guidance and counseling, and it helps. It tries to help empower women to find their own way in the society, in living in a Finnish society. The thing is that the thing to remember, very important thing about Amal Ry is that the workers, we're not scholars here. So we cannot say things about religious, deep religious issues, but we can try to help them in a spiritual, social work kind of way. Because many a times Muslim women have issues which they kind of feel like they cannot speak to maybe a non-Muslim social worker because they feel like they might not be understood so deeply. But we over here try to take that into account and try to guide our clients through spiritual social work. But we are not scholars, we are social workers, and yes, and we are professionals here. So all the workers have done social work related um, professional studies. And Amal is providing helpline services right now, and they're available in many languages: Finnish, English, Arabic, Somali. And I would say that while I was working with my own project, SIMI project, we were also providing Hindi and Urdu and Punjabi languages. So inshallah, in the future, I intend to keep on voluntarily working with Amal so that we can continue providing as many languages guidance as we can. And we always keep in mind the basic social work rules. For example, confidentiality is very important when we have new clients with us, and we are very confidential. We don't tell their issues to other organizations, unless it's necessary, for example, when to include social services or not. But otherwise, the information is kept highly confidential. And so we have this same slide here in Finnish language. And you can see this information that on Mondays we have these helpline from 2 to 4, on Thursdays from 11 to 1, and on Saturdays we have it from 12 to 2. And you can find all this information on our website as well. And if somebody needs help and you think that they can benefit from Amal Ry, so please kindly, you can guide them and connect them to us. Okay. As we said that we're going to be touching the topic of Islam against racism here, because this is Anti-Racism Week, being celebrated around the world. Um, I don't know if everybody is familiar that when Islam came in the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 1400 years ago, it was a very racist Arab society, divided by class, divided based on like gender, based on tribes and color. It was a very segregated society. So at that time, when it was so ripe, full of racism and discrimination, the Prophet brought the message of equality, and it was like you can say, uh, it was something very new for those people, for that group of people. So 1400 years ago, again, I would like to shed light on the importance of equality in Islam, that it was part of the basic rules of Islam. The Prophet in his last sermon said, all humans are descended from Adam and Eve. There is no superiority of an Arab over a non Arab, or of a non Arab over an Arab, and no superiority of a white person over a black person, or of a black person over a white person, except on the basis of personal piety and righteousness. So I really personally, I feel this is a very concise and very informative hadith. It's one of my most favorite ones. How it's described, like even if you're an Arab, you have no right to discriminate against a non-Arab, and black over white or white over black, except if it's based on piousness and righteousness, because those are some things that everybody can work on, their basic characteristics, their basic characters. And but nobody can change the race they're born, and nobody can change the color of their skin. And this was the part of a farewell address that the Prophet gave. And excuse me, that the Prophet gave, and it talks about the basic religious and ethical ideals of Islam. The religion he began preaching in the early 7th century. Racial equality was one of the basic rules in Islam. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam words jolted a society divided by notions of tribal and ethnic superiority. Also, because in that time Arabs were women were considered weak. Also, other than the race and the um, tribal discrimination, women were also not considered a strong part of their society. Girls were being buried alive. But Islam discontinued every sort of discrimination based on gender, color, race, and everything. So this this is like Islam Rasismiya Vastan. You could, if you want to read it in Finnish, I'll give you a minute. So excuse my Finnish. I'm still learning the ropes around this language. But if you find any grammatical or any mistakes, please just excuse that. But you get the message behind it. Like, okay, so now we begin with the See Me project presentation, and See Me project is a project funded by Moni Heli, You can see the icon, like the logo for Moni Hedi over here. And the project was for 9 months, starting from July 2020 to March, ending in this March 2021. The basic target audience were Muslim women and girls of especially of working age. But obviously everybody is include like, and it's never a very hard and fast rule that you cannot come in, you can come in. Anybody can seek guidance, even if you're a Muslim girl who's not of a working age, or if you're a non-Muslim. But that the project was tailored especially for Muslim women and girls of working age living in a Finnish society. The purpose of this project, the basic outlines, guidelines for this was the making inclusive opportunities for women in different sectors of society. The aim of it was to increase the visibility of Muslim women in this Finnish society, and so that they could learn to better identify their expertise. Uh, and the the other aim, the purpose of this project was to talk about experience marginalization in the structures uh, in women, Muslim women's experiences of this phenomena. For example, if you've been trying actively to be a part of Finnish society as a student, as a worker, especially like in practical life, when you try to go out and you actively try to be a part of it, but somehow you just cannot put your finger why you cannot be a part of it. You try, you apply to different places, but then you come around to the question, is it me, is it that physical markers, the language, like what are those markers maybe that are holding me back? Is it because of my faith or my certain dress code, or due to the lack of, if you're an immigrant, due to the lack of language? Like, so the groups, the active sparring groups and workshops were, the main aim was that the Muslim women come together and talk about their experiences, so we kind of like better know uh, what and where there was problems in different people's experiences. So, and it aimed to catch Muslim women's own thoughts and reflections about what a Muslim woman's life is like in a Finnish society. Because many a times in different communities, because I'm Finnish Pakistani, so at least I know from like in this Pakistani Finnish community, when we sit, we talk about the failures of trying to actively integrate into the society, and and I'm sure like in different like communities, they have this inner circle where they always do end up talking about that. So the goal was to bring such women to the table where we can not only just talk about it, but listen to their problems and try to solve them and guide them through peer support, and to make a bridge basically between the structures in the society, working structures, and the Muslim women. The project activities, as you can see, were groups, identity peer groups, which were later changed into identity hobby groups. I would talk more about it when we are talking about groups, and then the workshops, the activities should have, and they did include workshops that would better polish the Muslim women's skills of trying to integrate into a society and empower them actually. uh, Counseling and guidance by contact or by phone calls was an active part of this project. So before the whole social distancing in between the first and the second wave of COVID, we did a lot of guidance by contact. It was pre-decided where where we would meet, whether Kela or whether it was like any like housing related help, or if it was we use certain spaces with our cooperation partners. One of them in Espoo was Trapisa, the other one was Numu in Helsinki. So before, but in between the first and the second wave, there was active contact, counseling and guidance, and afterwards with the, excuse me, with the phone calls. And then we had info points, and One of the most active and like important part of this project was social media campaign, and that we intend to carry on uh, as we go further. Okay, so you see here, like we had two types of groups were formed, because the first was identity peer support groups, but due to the nature of the group advertisement, I realized after 4 or 5 times that it was difficult for people just to sit there and talk about their experiences. It was like they took a lot of time to open up. So and then later, as time passed, I realized like it, because we're talking about women going coming out of their houses at a certain time. So it would be nice if we could do some sort of hobby slash identity peer group. So it wasn't very hard and fast like just the hobby group, and it wasn't very hard and fast rule about the identity group. So as you are working with your hands and you're like getting to know each other within a group, then you could just find time and talk about their experiences into integration process in the Finnish society. So that was one of the reasons that the outline of the group had to be changed and re-advertised after 4 or 5 times. The cooperation partner I would like to say in this were Philoxenia trapeza in Espunkeskus. It's also a third sector organization which works with immigrants, and it also works with multi-religious social work. So and then Numu in Helsinki in Malmi. So Numu Norat Muslimit. RU is working with Muslim youth and in Helsinki, and um, the last of the groups was sorry about the typo. It's Malmi, not Malimi. Asuka Stalo in Malmi. It was a place by Helsinki city, and the hobby group was supposed to take place there, but then there was a lot of restrictions coming for the cities, so we had to discontinue having the groups. Unfortunately, everything was planned, all the equipment and the tools bought for the hobbies, and there were a lot of people who were interested. Like I said, like it's difficult for women and girls to come and just sit there and talk about themselves. It's kind of like an inter-community barrier, you can as well say. But when we were talking about hobby groups, there were so many calls for women who were interested, but they later on I had to kind of tell them that due to the restrictions continuing to since this winter time, we could not we cannot accommodate right now, but in the future, as this situation eases down, we would intend to continue it. um, the groups were a very safe place. As you can see in the pictures, it was decided that we would serve tea, coffee, biscuits for the women, and keep a generic client data chart without any specific name information. So it was confidential, but and it was a child friendly group because we kept activities and colors and arts and crafts equip like tools and stuff for the children, as you can see in the picture. And the space when we booked, it was pretty much empty, so nobody outside could just come and pop in. So and this picture is from the second part of the hobby group. So we did have that one session, but unfortunately, we could not have the rest of the six because of the restrictions by the city of Espoo and by the city of Helsinki. We had to discontinue going to the venues that were decided. So, but keeping in mind, we did try to take care of all the hygiene, provided masks and sanitizers, and everything was sanitized before. So the first of the two sessions was cake decorating. So we hair decorated a cake. It was completely client-based choice of colors, and so this got a lot of attention and a lot of calls and interest by other people. But like I said, like it had to be discontinued. But in the future, this is an idea that Amal can continue to have hobby groups such as these. Okay, workshops. So there were two workshops in this time, and we did them online at Zoom. And there was a lot of interest again on these workshops because they were both very relevant when you're working in a practical, when you're trying to integrate into your practical life by working or being a student. So the first workshop was about improving communication and interpersonal skills. This has also been uploaded to our YouTube channel that I would shed some light on later on in this presentation. And you can have a look at that. And then there was this workshop which will be uploaded on YouTube soon enough, that how to overcome procrastination. So uh, and there was a lot of good feedback after these workshops. So if you would like to have a look, please kindly visit the YouTube channel for 9 Minute project, and then you can also have a look at these workshops. There was a lot of useful, clear and concise, relevant information that could benefit everybody generically, specifically the women audience that I decided to prepare this for. And individual counseling, obviously we don't have pictures to share for that, but there was phone counseling, there was meeting counseling, there was counseling related to housing issues, related to uh, other sorts of official applications and Kala problems, and uh, there was like counseling for Urdu speaking clients, Hindi and Urdu speaking clients, English speaking, or there were some like immigrants who spoke Salkoswami. So we would use a translator as a sort of like communication. But uh, there was also a sense of between the worker and myself and the clients, there was a very good sense of trust, and they knew that Amal, or this 9 Minute project, is trying its best, and it is always client oriented approach. Like we do not force people to do or act in a certain way, and we it's happily ever after is not the goal of when you're individual counseling. So the clients know, and they have to, because they're adults, they're grown-ups, they have to make their own decisions, and there is no responsibility on the worker or the organization if something does not act up. So, and then info points. The need for having the info points in this project, in the middle of this project, was to better advertise and market our, excuse me, to better advertise and market our activities. So it was done in collaboration with our other project, Umahanke, in with Amal Ry, Umahanke, and Naibinod. So the info sessions were held at Malmi Talo. It's a very busy place if you haven't been there already. So there's a lot of coming and going of every um, sort of different background people and age specific, especially Muslims. There are a lot of Muslims living in Malmi. So, and we advertised our activities and groups over there. So me and my colleague were there for 3 times. And and also like Finnish people, different people, men and women, they came to know more about us and our activities, and they showed their interest in, like, why is there specifically a Muslim serving organization over here. But they were very supportive, I would say. Nobody uh, kind of resisted the idea of this. So yes, we talk about social media campaign. uh, Social media campaign was a initial part of this project outline, that it would be done via different social media channels, YouTube being mainly our channel that was used in this campaign. And then we had an Instagram page, and Facebook advertisement and marketing for 9 Minute or See Me project was done through Amal's own Facebook page. YouTube channel has so far 41 subscribers and around 1400 views in total. Instagram page has 81 followers, and There are a lot of like or other NGO work, social work organizations following Instagram page. And then we have like Amal Ry, which was very helpful. My colleague has been helpful in letting us use this as a platform to market our activities. So let me share a video that was the launching video for the CME project. There are a lot of videos, and we are going to continue a series of programs in a serial wise episodes that you can have a look and see what our activities are about. What do Muslim women think? What sort of problems do we face? And so I would try to just give me a moment. Mhm. So let me, uh, please tell me if you can hear this video as well. 9 minutes. Without stereotyping.
No, but I know. I hear it, but I can't see.
You can hear, but you can't see?
Yes.
Okay. Let me try one more time. Okay. Let me click this own video link. Can you see now?
No.
No, I think you have to change the sharing of that screen and go to the YouTube screen. So it's like two different screens. It's not in the same screen, and you're sharing the PowerPoint screen or the Esito screen.
Okay. Let me try again. I'm trying to resume share. No. Okay, that's kind of like a technical fault here with me right now. But if you would like to watch this video, okay, I am sharing the link right now. Just a minute. Mm. Mm, 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 mm. Can you see now? Nothing?
No.
Okay.
No, nothing. Just the page of the Esito.
Okay, I think I should just carry on right now. This this is like kind of frustrating for me. So we might just as well carry on with the social this presentation. Um, okay, if you go and search for 9 minute channel on YouTube, you're going to see our logo and channel and some videos over there already uploaded, and you can subscribe there and start. Like, if it would be nice if you can spread the word and start following us over there as well. So this was our social media campaign, and this is the part of the project that is intended to continue, especially the YouTube channel, because we have already started serials of different topics, so that we intend to continue. Um, Obstacle and setbacks in this time, in the 9 months that we had this project, as well, because we're in social work and it's always about trying to get clients, and it was kind of an adaptive phase for us, because we were clients as well as the workers were trying to shift online. So sometimes it would be nice that we could get a lot of clients online that committed to come in a certain activity group or panel discussion. But sometimes the commitments were like not that strong, but I would continue to talk more about it in a little while. So COVID-19 was one of the reasons I would feel that the intended activities could not be held out that as they were planned. and social distancing. There were many people who were interested, but would also excuse in the end that they cannot come because they sneezed or they felt that they have an itchy or runny nose. And then it's kind of demotivating because it takes a lot of time and effort to plan a group. And also when we are investing in the uh, tools and the equipment for a hobby group and stuff. So, and anyway, we did have a good response, but not as much as was expected. Uh, and then when the word starts getting out after 1 or 2 months of marketing, okay, this is an activity being held by this project, by this organization, when people start finally getting interested into it. And like I said, that I felt the need to change the outline for the peer identity group to a hobby and peer identity group. So, and when that was started, right, in between the second group, the city restrictions were put on the venues, especially doing the social work, that it would be nice. It wasn't like forbidden, but nobody, the cooperation partners did not want to take the responsibility of holding a group where there could be a spread of the COVID virus. So it was very nicely excused. They nicely excused to us that it is up to us if we want to continue having the contact sessions for the groups, but it's up to us. So it was a nice way of saying that it wasn't felt comfortable to continue with the venue contact sessions. So we decided to postpone because it's always very uncertain when the situation might get better 1 month, 2 months later. But even till now, it has even gotten more strict. So some a week or two ago, I still got an inquiry message about the group happenings, and I told them that until further notice, we cannot say anything. So uh, obviously, the project is ending right now in March, and that's kind of a disappointment for the clients who were already signed up and interested in coming to the groups. But we can always plan something, maybe not on a very regular basis, but we intend to do groups from time to time that would bring in more clients. And and when we're talking about recommitments with online meetings, like I said, that this was an adaptive phase for everybody, the workers as well as the people. It's just this thing that with the personal word of mouth, with my colleagues and their connections and our cooperation collaboration networks, we did used to market the online meetings, workshops, and whatever was happening, the panel discussions that I did with 9 Minute. I forgot to mention it over here, but it's on our YouTube channel if you want to see. Talks about inclusion as well. So inclusion and experiences of Muslim women, that panel discussion. So coming back to the point, so it's like a lot of people are like saying that they're gonna come, they show their interest in the event on Facebook, so you can actually see the number of people who are interested, like 30, 35. But in the end, it's kind of very disheartening to see that not even like 8 are making it to the meeting, or like 8 is a good number still, I would feel. And so I feel like I used to market it in a way where there were lectures, for example, the workshops. Unless they needed to ask a question, they didn't need an active participation in a way, because it was like a workshop where they were learning things from us, from the speaker, from myself. And so I used to specifically say that they don't need to be in front of the camera. If that's one of the things that's stopping them from coming, they don't need to actively speak unless they want to ask a question or they have something to share, because people were not comfortable in their home clothes or their surroundings, or their children crying, or like the whole household at the back of their camera. So I used to market it in a very like client friendly way. And but there was this again, and this commitment was like weak still, so it's like an online thing. It's very easy to come online, but it's also very easy to break this kind of commitment. So sometimes people excuse, sometimes not. But otherwise, like the project was outlined, each group was character like each group was given a good theme. Everything was very well planned, but these were the certain obstacles and setbacks that we faced in active social work activities during this 9 months of period. And I really do hope that this improves this year and we can continue like otherwise in our professions, to work more actively. So that was my presentation, and I think I'm kind of like, yes, it's about time. So, like I said, that we would be talking now. We have a PhD researcher from Helsinki University, Sara Aitokari. I would like her to come and talk about herself and what her research is about, and uh, she would like to share some things with us. So I would stop sharing my screen. So, if Sarah, you want to share something, you can share your screen.
Thank you, but actually I don't have a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
I would just like to talk a few minutes about my research.
Okay, great.
And I won't be needing 20 minutes because I am still in the early stage of my work. I'm currently gathering data. So as I said, my name is Sara Aitokari and I'm doing a doctoral thesis at the University of Helsinki, where my topic is Muslim women's political and societal participation and agency and trust in Finnish society. And in principle, my subject is area and cultural studies, but in practice, it's quite cross-disciplinary. And perhaps it's, I would say it's closest to sociology. And right now I'm doing semi-structured interviews. So far I've done 7, but more interviews are needed. As mentioned earlier, Corona has made all this more difficult because I've had to reach people only online, and that tends to make things more complicated. And this is a data-driven research. So in other words, I'm not testing any particular hypothesis. And interview topics have included issues such as work, views on politics, participation or non-participation in politics. And here politics is understood as more than just party politics, other issues as well. And also social atmosphere in Finland and networks and values. And from what I've gathered so far, as I said, I more interviews are needed, and I don't have any results yet. But it's obvious that there are various kinds of positions on these matters and different ways of engagement among Finnish Muslim women. Views on such issues as voting or issues that the respondents care about varied a lot. And then again, xenophobia and right-wing populism were concerns that were shared by many. But aside from that, reality seems to be much more nuanced than stereotypes tend to suggest. One practical problem, I would say, is that educated middle-class converts have been relatively easy to reach an interview. And although that has been great, I mean, I've been very happy of every single interview that I have got so far. I would also like to reach women whose agency and presence in Finnish society is particularly likely to be problematized or called into question. For instance, Salafis or Niqabists or women from ethnic minorities. And here I have obviously had problems with outreach. I think those have to do with language and networks and trust. As I said, middle-class Finnish converts have been easiest to get in touch with. Yeah, and but I would also like to reach other women. And well, one problematic factor is that so far I've wanted to interview people in Finnish because I want to keep a clear distinction between what is due to religious minority status and what is simply a result of language barrier. But this is obviously not completely unproblematic because it may be that there are also women who have lived in Finland for a long time and speak Finnish, but whose networks are mainly non-Finnish. So in a way, I haven't found them. And right now I'm considering whether it would be beneficial to conduct interviews in English as well. Unfortunately, other languages are probably not possible because I'm doing this alone without the help of translators. But that's about all I want to say about this right now. If you have any comments or ideas on this, and especially on how to reach more women and different kinds of respondents, then I would very much like to hear what you think. Thank you.
Would somebody like to ask Sarah if they have any questions regarding her work?
Hei.
Hi.
Minä olen tosiaan Minna Taipale ja toimin Amal Ryn toiminnanjohtajana tällä hetkellä. Ja olisin Saara halunnut sinulta kysyä sellaisen kysymyksen, kysynyt suomeksi tämän, mutta mikä on se ajatus, että millainen tausta tässä on, että mikä sai sinut niin tutkimaan tätä aihetta, ja ajatteletko, että sille olisi niin tarvetta niin laajemmallekin tutkimukselle myös niin sit vähän niin tästä sun tutkimuspiiristä niin laajentamalla vielä? Ja mikä se voisi olla sitten se semmoinen muu niin näkökulma, minkä tässä voisi ottaa? Onko sulla tullut mitään sellaisia tässä, niin vaikka oletkin hyvin alkuvaiheessa, mutta onko tullut jotain ajatuksia?
Siis, se varmaan ensisijaisesti se, minkä takia mä oon lähtenyt tämän tyyppistä tutkimusta tekemään, niin liittyy ennen kaikkea siihen, että mä oon halunnut tutkia sellaisten naisten toimijuutta ja läsnäoloa suomalaisessa yhteiskunnassa, joiden se toimijuus ja aktiivinen kansalaisuus useimmiten ja todennäköisimmin kyseenalaistetaan ja problematisoidaan sitä. Niin se on, ja joiden ei ehkä samalla tavalla sitten jostain syystä oleteta olevan kiinnostuneita vaikka politiikasta tai yhteiskunnallisista asioista, tai joiden kiinnostuksen oletetaan olevan sellaista kapea-alaisempaa. Niin se on se, mistä tämä on alun perin lähtenyt. Mä en ole ihan varma, sainko mä kiinni tuon sun kysymyksen toisesta osasta.
Joo, kiitoksia. Siis, mä lähinnä siis pohdin sitä, mä itsekin teen tutkimusta nimenomaan musliminaisiin liittyen, ja jotenkin tuntuu, että siis suomalaisessa tutkimuskentässä niin aika paljolti se on niin kuin kiinnittynyt siihen niin kuin juuri palanneisiin. Kuten sanoit, että säkin olet saanut nyt paljon yhteydenottoja juuri niin kuin palanneilta tai muslimikäännynäisiltä, kuten heistä yleensä puhutaan, että jotenkin tuntuu, että se ehkä tavoittaa se tutkimus niin kuin heitä, he on ehkä valmiimpia ottamaan sitä niin kuin tutkimukseen osallistumaan, mutta sitten se, että saadaanko sitten tietyllä tavalla laajempaa näkökulmaa siitä muslimiyhteisöstä ja musliminaisten osallisuudesta, niin varmaan se on juuri tärkeä pointti, että kun sanoit, että haluat niin kuin tavallaan saada myös muita niin kuin naisia siihen mukaan. Ja mä mietin, että meillä on täällä muun muassa, mä en tiedä onko Linda nyt paikalla, mutta Lindallahan on myös ollut niin kuin tutkimusta teemaan liittyen, niin mä mietin sitä, että minkälaisia kokemuksia Lindalla on, onko vastaavia kokemuksia. Pystytkö Linda kommentoimaan? Linda ainakin laittoi chattiin, että on paikalla, mutta pystytkö kommentoimaan?
Joo, sori, mä oon ollut vähän hiljainen tässä, kun mä tein lounasta ja syötiin samalla, kun kuuntelin näitä esitelmiä. niin en ole täältä huudellut mitään, mutta tosissaan kysyt siis niin kun, kokemuksista liittyen tavoittaa näitä haastattelun osallistujia, ymmärränkö oikein, Minna?
Kyllä joo, koska tuntuu, että aika usein niin kun nimenomaan me palanneet ollaan siellä ensimmäisenä aina, niin että minkälaisia ajatuksia tästä voisi olla, ja ehkä myös Saaralle sit sellaista mä mietin, että kun Saara kuitenkin haluat niin kuin laajentaa sitä tutkimuksen näkökulmaa, niin tavallaan mä koen, että tässä kohtaa niin kuin me toki pystytään, niin kuin toivon, että kaikki, jotka tänne keskusteluun osallistuu, niin voisi jakaa sitten tätä tietoa tästä Saaran tutkimuksesta, ja mekin ollaan jaettu, mutta että mikä siinä voisi olla? Onko samoja kokemuksia ollut? Koska mulla on itselläni myös vähän sama kokemus oman tutkimuksen tiimoilta.
Joo, eli siis no tietysti siis se mun oma tutkimus, josta mä nyt sitten vähän lyhyesti vielä tuun puhumaan siinä mun omassakin osuudessani, niin sehän niin kuin periaatteessa keskittyy vain ja ainoastaan palanneisiin, mutta jos mä nyt tätä Saaran tutkimusta sitten mietin, niin mä ymmärrän, niin kuin, siis mä oon samoilla linjoilla niin kuin Amina sun kanssa siinä, että palanneet usein niin kuin haluaa olla hyvinkin aktiivisia näissä jutuissa, koska jostain syystä vaan, en tiedä, juttu ehkä luistaa paremmin tai on ehkä semmoinen halu niin kuin periaatteessa puhua niistä omista kokemuksista, koska periaatteessa me ollaan myös niitä ihmisiä, jotka jokapäiväisissä tilanteissa joutuu usein niin kuin, semmoiseen niin kuin, kysymyksen asetteluun, että no miksi sä nyt palasit islamiin ja miten se elämä on muuttunut ja näin poispäin. Että ehkä siihen on tottunut sitten taas puhumaan näistä omista kokemuksista eri tavalla. Mutta sitten tosissaan kyllä mä niin kuin sitä mieltä, että kannattaa hyvinkin sisällyttää myös musliminaiset, joilla on siis tämmöinen, miksi sitä sanotaan suomeksi, tämä niin kuin immigration background, eli siis jotka on esimerkiksi vaikka syntyneet Suomessa, mutta maahanmuuttajavanhemmille. Ja sitten en näe myöskään mitään ongelmaa siinä, että yksi ryhmistä ja joku ehkä fokusgruppi tai joku tämmöinen olisi vaikka niin kuin semmoiset uudet maahanmuuttajat, koska siihen voisi siihen kysymyksen asetteluun ottaa nimenomaan semmoisen vertailevan niin kuin näkökannan siihen, että miten helppo se poliittinen aktivismi on sitten näille tietyille ryhmille, koska siinä on motivaatiot tietysti eri tavalla mukana. Jos katsoo uusia maahanmuuttajia, sitten jos katsoo maahanmuuttajien lapsia ja sitten palanneita, koska kaikilla on ne omat semmoiset sosioekonomiset niin kuin, taustansa siinä, ja sitten se, että miten vahvasti identifioi siihen niin kuin yhteisöön, yhteiskuntaan ja niin kuin tähän poliittiseen kulttuuriinkin, niin en näe mitään ongelmaa, mutta Saaralle vielä semmoisena kommenttina vaan, että mä oon itse asiassa paljon yhteyksissä tämän Amina Dasin kanssa, joka on Englannissa yliopistossa lehtorina, ja hän on juurikin julkaissut viime vuoden puolella uuden kirjan tästä Political Participation of Muslim Women. Ja hän on itse asiassa tulossa meidän tähän, meillä on tämä European Forum of Muslim Women, niin me ollaan pitämässä hänen kanssaan myös vierailuluento aiheeseen liittyen. Saara on lämpimästi tervetullut osallistumaan tähän luentoon, ja jos hän haluaa, niin voin myös auttaa saamaan yhteyden kyseiseen tutkijaan, koska häneltä voisi saada hyviä tipsejä myös niin kuin liittyen tähän kysymyksen asetteluun, koska en ole ihan varma siitä, että miten Helsingissä tai siellä Suomessa yliopistolehtoreilla
Nyt lähti ääni, mä en ainakaan kuule enää Lindaa.
Joo, taisi Lindan ääni hävitä. Miten Saara ajattelet? Tuliko tuossa sellaista, haluatko kommentoida vielä?
Joo, nämä oli erittäin hyviä huomioita ja olin juuri ennen kuin Lindan ääni katosi, niin olin kommentoimassa, että ehdottomasti jos hän voisi joko vaikka ihan tähän chattiin tai sitten minulle lähettämällä, niin tämän kyseisen tutkijan nimen, mä nimittäin en ihan kuullut kokonaan sitä, että kenestä oli kyse, niin että ehdottomasti haluan kyllä perehtyä tähän. Mutta ilmeisesti Linda ei ole nyt paikalla enää.
Okei. Joo, Linda taisi ehkä pudota vähäksi aikaa.
I think she'll come back. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So if somebody wants to share something, or otherwise we can take a short break for 5 to 6 minutes, and then we can recommence with our panel discussion at 3 o'clock. Is everybody okay with the break?
Yes, okay. That's
Sure.
okay.
Okay, welcome back again at 3 o'clock. See you.
Okei. Luulen, että kello alkaa olla 3 ja meidän panelistitkin ovat varmaan kaikki nyt paikalla. Miten pystyvätkö panelistit avata kameran myös?
Joo.
Kiitos. Can all the panelists open the cameras also?
Yes.
Okei. Pahoittelut. Sorry about that. Lapset tulee heti juuri silloin, kuin ei pitäisi. Kids are always like that. Okay. Eli aloitellaan varmaan tätä paneelia. Eli tosiaan minä olen Minna Taipale ja toimin tosiaan Amal Ryn toiminnanjohtajana ja sitten meidän toisen hankkeen Umma-hankkeen hankepäällikkönä. Ja meillä on tänään tosiaan ajatuksena täällä käydä paneelikeskustelua. Meillä on esittelen pian panelistit. Eli tosiaan meidän tämän paneelin aiheena on tänään nimenomaan musliminaisten osallisuus työelämässä. Tämä paneeli on pääasiassa suomenkielinen, mutta esitän kysymykset myös englanniksi ja panelisteilla on mahdollisuus vastata myös englanniksi halutessaan. Ja sitten varataan vähän sinne paneelikeskustelun loppuun aikaa. Tässä on meillä tunti noin aikaa, niin varataan sinne keskustelulle, että voitte esittää sitten osallistujat niin lisäkysymyksiä ja voitte jo kirjoittaa sinne paneelikeskustelun aikana sinne chattiin niitä tai sitten voitte silloin lopuksi laittaa raise hand-nappia painaa. Okay, so welcome for the panel discussion of this seminar. My name is Minna Taipale and I'm the general manager of Amal Ry, and today I will be the facilitator of this panel discussion. And our topic of the panel discussion is today inclusion of Muslim women in the working life. Ja esittelen seuraavaksi sitten panelistit, eli meillä on panelisteina täällä, voitte lyhyesti sieltä varmaan jotain pientä huikata, jos haluatte vähän, mutta meillä on Emma Patovuori, joka toimii varapuheenjohtajana Amal Ryssä. So Emma is the vice chair in Amal Ry.
Moikka kaikille. Täällä omien töiden ohella ehdin tulla tähän paneelikeskusteluun ja kiitos siitä, että sain mahdollisuuden nyt tulla keskustelemaan tästä tärkeästä aiheesta, mikä meillä myös Amalissa aika paljon puhuttaa ja mikä nähtäisi loistavana kehityskohteena. Mutta voidaan jutella kohta myöhemmin.
Joo, kiitos Emma. Ja sitten Afrah Al-Bayati, joka toimii media- ja viestintävastaavana Turun islamilaisessa yhdyskunnassa ja monessa muussakin toiminnassa mukana. So next is Afrah Al-Bayati, Media and Communications Officer from Islamic Community of Turku. Haluatko jotain kommentoida, Afrah?
Ilman muuta. I don't know whether I should speak in Finnish or English, but maybe I speak in English, so at least everyone understands. Thank you so much for inviting me for this panel, because this is very, very important topic for me, and personally I consider it very important, the empowerment of Muslim women in the working world. And this is one of the topics which also I want to bring up in the municipal elections, inshallah, this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ja sitten Nuha Abu Said, joka toimii puheenjohtajana Nuoret Muslimit ry:ssä. And Nuha is the chair of the board at Young Muslims Association. Haluatko lyhyesti esittäytyä?
Joo, kiitos. Ja mä oon siis Nuha ja munkin puolestani kiitokset Amalille kutsusta tähän paneeliin. Paneelin aihe on todella tärkeä ja aina ajankohtainen, ja mun mielestä siitä puhutaan ehkä vähän liian vähäsen. Tosi hienoa, että saa olla osana tätä paneelikeskustelua.
Kiitos. Ja seuraavana panelistina on Sandra Imran Al-Suus, joka on puheenjohtaja Mirsal ry:stä. Sandra is chair of the board at Mirsal ry. Do you want to say something?
Yes. Thanks for inviting me. Actually, I see this topic is very important and very much related to our work in Mirsal. Thanks again, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Ja sitten meillä on Anna Lenkkevits-Salminen, joka toimii koordinaattorina naapuriäititoiminnassa Nice Hearts ry:ssä. Anna is coordinator for Neighborhood Mothers Project at Nice Hearts ry.
Yes, hello. Thank you everybody for welcoming me and inviting me. I'm really excited to be here, and it is indeed a very important topic. Of course, we are not specifically working for a certain amount of community, but for all women. But I'm sure we will have a lot of important topics to talk about and important aspects to talk about. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okei, eli ehkä voidaan sitten suoraan aloittaa ensimmäisellä kysymyksellä, eli panelistit voivat kaikki, annan teille puheenvuorot, so I will give the roles for you, but first I will start on the first question, eli miten näet suomalaisen työelämän kohtaavan musliminaiset? So how do you see the Finnish work life confronts Muslim women? Ja haluaisiko Afrah aloittaa? Would you like to start, Afrah, on that one?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, well, I see that generally, I see that the working life and employers somehow they still categorize Muslim women as for only for certain jobs, certain fields, and some courses and education centers where the women go to study, whether they go to study language or some occupation, they want to offer them only the certain type of jobs or careers like cleaning or nursing or something, which are very good. Absolutely, of course, they're very good, but not all women are the same. They have hopes and they have dreams, and they should be able to fulfill those dreams, absolutely, and have equal opportunities to fulfill and to go after what they desire, what they want to do. The society should be definitely open for that and to give them those possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Miten, Anna, sinä työskentelet muun muassa sellaisessa toiminnassa, missä varmasti kohtaat musliminaisia, niin onko omassa työssäsi näkynyt toi mitä Afrah toi esille? So Anna, do you see the same aspects on your own work, what Afrah bring up?
Yes, I think I can relate to that. I will speak in a more general, on a more general level, for all our women we have, our neighborhood mothers, and we hear a lot, unfortunately, but we hear a lot, they are often pushed in a certain direction. For example, after that kotoutumis training, to become a nurse, and it's that typical woman's work. So of course that is a big aspect for us, and apart from that, there's also, for example, that feeling due to the language barrier, for example, that they are not feeling to be part of the work community if they are working, or if they are in some company. Also a big part for what we figure out is that a lot of women, with migrant background especially, they don't have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about what is their right as a worker. So that is a big problem, that they cannot, for example, voice what is wrong, or what can be done better. So those aspects are mostly what we deal with, and of course then share information and try to help out.
Okay, thank you. Pohdin myös sitä, että millä tavoin näkyykö esimerkiksi uskonnolliset tavat jollain tavalla tavalla tässä musliminaisten työllistymisessä. Miten esimerkiksi, jos Nuha kysyn sinulta, ajatteletko, että niillä voi olla vaikutusta työllistymiseen?
No siis sen verran mun pitäisi taustasta jakaa mun omaa taustaani, eli mähän olen käynyt koulut tuolla Pohjois-Pohjanmaalla, ja siellä mä oon ainakin kokenut, että opot on ohjanneet samalla lailla kuin muitakin oppilaita, ja sitten ei ole ollut tavallaan niin kuin koulutuksen aikana sellaista niin kuin uskonnon puolesta niin kuin tullut diskriminaatiota. Mutta sitten jos miettii, sitten taas kun miettii sitä aikaa, kun lähti hakemaan eka työpaikkaa, niin kyllä mä paljon mietin sitä, että miten paljon vaikka mun huivini niin kuin antaa vääränlaisen niin kuin ensivaikutelman, kun haen töitä. Ja sitten myöskin laitanko mä edes mun kuvaani CV:seen. Ja sitten mulla sattui sitten käymään sillä lailla, että kun mä muutin PK-seudulle ja sitten mulla oli semmoinen vaihe, että mä kirjoitin graduun ja mä vaan halusin jonkun semmoisen työpaikan, missä voi vaan heittää niin kuin kaikki ajatukset narikkaan, eli aika suorittavaa työtä, en hirveän tosissani edes hakenutkaan, niin mä ajattelin, että no mä en edes tosissani hae, mäpä kokeilen, että mä menen vaan omana ittenäni, ja sitten tuli tosi hyviä kokemuksia siitä, mutta mä veikkaan, että hyvin moni nuori miettii just sitä, tai varsinkin ensimmäisen työpaikkaa hakiessa, että voinko mä mennä sellaisena kuin mä oon. Ja sitten erityisesti ne, jotka käyttää huivia, miettii varmasti sitä, että mitä ne ajattelee mun huivista. Ja sitten tilanne on tietenkin vielä isompi, jos käyttää niqabia, että mä voin vain kuvitella, että miten iso kynnys on lähteä ihan omana ittenä hakemaan ihan niin kuin mitä tahansa työtä niqab päässä taas.
Kiitos. What about Sandra or Emma? What kind of thoughts you have on this issue?
Well, yeah, as Muslim women and also part of Workers of Finland project that was run in Mirsal and supported by Moniheli in 2020, we had a very close contact with women workers who have Islam as religion. Of course, like Muslim women face daily challenges for many reasons. First, because they are immigrants. Second, because they are women. And third, also because they are like Muslims. So these three reasons make them have too much to carry upon their shoulders when they are facing the society in Finland. I can, for instance, as example, the Islamic dress or hijab, which worn by some Muslim women, wearing hijab can be a problem in Finland if a woman wants to be employed, especially on public sector. It has been said that immigrant women face problems to find work in Finland due to poor language skills or low level of education, no work experience. I don't know how much these reasons are true in many cases, but I see that those reasons can be used as like legal reasons to cover sometimes the real reason behind of not employ Muslim women. I don't want to say that Finnish society is racist, but I can say that it is very conservative when it comes to accepting religion, especially like Islamic religion. For instance, in Mirsal, we tried many efforts to make immigrants to join trade unions as a way to make their voice better heard in collective agreements. Unfortunately, after close discussion with a certain trade union, they said that we cannot argue for Muslim rights at workplace. Such, for instance, like taking official holiday or an Eid or pray break on Fridays, even if Muslims are members of trade union. According to trade union, they said that this must be discussed with employer. This means that employer is free to decide on personal choices of his employees, whether to make them challenge in their working place or comfort them.
Thank you. What about Emma? Millaisia ajatuksia sinulla on? on suomalaisesta työelämästä.
Kiitos Amina ja anteeksi, mä valmistelen näitä mun vastauksia suomen kielellä.
Joo, se on ihan ok.
Joo, ja nyt sen verran kiirettä töissä, niin aivot ei nyt taivu kääntämään tässä ihan reaaliajassa, mutta mä ehkä itse tarkastelen tätä lähinnä tällainen vähän oikeustieteilijänä rakenteiden ja lainsäädännön kannalta, että allekirjoitan kaikki, mitä muut siskot tuossa kokemuksissaan kertoi, mutta jos pohditaan ihan lainsäädännön kannalta, niin mun mielestä Suomessa tilanne sillä tavalla on kuitenkin verrattain hyvä. Meillä on lainsäädännöllä pyritty puuttumaan mahdollisiin epäkohtiin. Meillä on syrjinnän kieltävä lainsäädäntö aika hyvin kunnossa ja myös muunlaisia rakenteellisia mahdollisuuksia sitten puuttua mahdollisiin epäkohtiin, syrjintään ja rasismiin. Ja lisäksi tähän tulee vielä koko ajan ohjaavaa oikeuskäytäntöä. Anonyymistä rekrytoinnista mun mielestä puhutaan kasvamassa määrin, ja se on juurikin tavallaan ehkä mun mielestä työnantajien keino jollain tavalla hallita tällaisia syrjinnän kokemuksia, mitä monet kertoivatkin, että koetaan, että huivin käyttö tai etninen tausta voi vaikuttaa siihen työllistymiseen. Ja lisäksi mun mielestä enenevissä määrin myös puhutaan siitä, että työnantajat pyrkii moninaisuuteen työpaikoilla ja halutaan nimenomaan kannustaa työtä hakemaan hakuilmoituksessa henkilöitä, jotka tulee erilaisista taustoista. Ja se, mitä olisiko Anne, joka sanoi tässä niin kuin rights as a worker, niin musta tuntuu, että se on ihan totta, että puuttuu myös tietoa työntekijän oikeuksista, mutta myös ehkä siitä työelämän moninaisuudesta, että se ei ole aina sitä 8–4 työtä tai kolmivuorotyötä, vaan on myös paljon erilaisia mahdollisuuksia työllistyä ja voisi olla vähän niin kuin matalamman kynnyksen keinoja sitten ikään kuin harjoitella sitä työelämää, jos siihen ei ole tottunut. Ja ehkä vielä lopuksi voisin sanoa, että mun mielestä hienoa kuulla, mitä Nuha sanoi tästä opon ohjaamisesta, koska mulla oli ehkä itsellä semmoinen pelko, että toki tässä on varmasti eroja, mutta mulla on semmoinen inhottava ajatus, että opot edelleenkin voisi ohjata sillai ennakkoluuloon perustuen, mutta hienoa, ja varmastikin tässä on myöskin vähän aluekohtaisia eroja, mutta tosi kiva kuulla se, mitä Nuha sanoit.
Hyvä. Kiitoksia. Ja tästä on ehkä hyvä siirtyä sitten tuonne toiseen kysymykseen. Tuossa tulikin esille jo vähän noita omia kokemuksia. Se seuraava kysymys olikin, että millaisia kokemuksia sinulla itselläsi on yhteiskunnan tai työelämän vastaanottavuudesta? So what kind of experiences do you received by society or work life in your own life? Or how you have seen like maybe your friends or some co-workers or anybody to how the work life is confronting them. Eli ajattelen, että voisiko vaikka Afrah aloittaa, ole hyvä.
Kiitos paljon. Yes, this is a very good question, and I'm happy to share mine and others' experience who I have looked from close. I have good and negative experiences. I have good experiences, for example, from private companies where the employer is like very flexible. I can be myself, work flexibly, and very welcomed as how I am and how I dress. But then also what previous speaker Emma was talking about, that the working society, they usually now promote that they want like diverse people, they want the work community to be more diverse. I see this as well in the advertisements. When they open a job, they write something, especially the state. Yeah, but this is only words. This is like a collective experience, my experience and many people around me. They write that, but it's just in words. When we apply and we see that, okay, I have the knowledge of this area. I have exactly like I feel everything what they are looking for in this for this task, but they do not take. Then in the end, they take exactly one one local, like they want a specialist, for example, who has experience about diverse. They say, we wish we have a person who speaks these and these and these languages. But when the person applies and speaks and fulfills all requirements, no, they take exactly the opposite. They take the local Finnish person who does not speak and so on. So, but as what I have experienced also, this is many times because there is someone like above who feels or who sees them as a threat. They somehow are afraid to, at the same time, afraid to let any kind of positions for the women who are a little bit different or who are multicultural. They see somehow like afraid to empower them for some reason. And this is wrong because this is not working for the good of the purpose of the work. So unfortunately, then I had another point, but I forgot what it was. Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. What about Sandra? Do you feel, do you have same experiences or do you have like opposite experiences?
Yes, actually, of course, like because I can face like a little bit like less problems because I don't like look like traditional Muslim. Like for instance, I don't wear hijab, but I could give two examples. One example on about me and another on my friend. Like me as working mother, when I go to work, I wear good. I take care of my outlook. I see people in general respect me also on the street and bus, and they want to help me. They like assume that I am a working woman and I have like my independent life. But for instance, when I am out with my kids, pushing my stroller with the small babies, they immediately consider me as a refugee who have no work or education. Several times I receive bad comments or strange annoyed looks at me. I easily can compare like between the behavior of societies when I'm alone or with my kids. About my friend, she also like decided recently to wear hijab. She said to me like she started to face like very often hidden racist experiences, much more before she started to wear hijab. For instance, she said that especially with social or Tetoimisto workers who want to stereotype her on one category, such like you need to be a lahi hoitaja, while she also like want to do something on her certificate as she studied like international business. This kind of like, yeah, experiences. Yes.
Thank you. Entä Nuha, onko sinulla samanlaisia kokemuksia, mitä Sandra toi esille? Do you have same experiences that Sandra bring up?
Siis musta tuntuu, että mä oon saanut jonkun sortin tämmöisen voittavan lottokupongin. Että mä en ole itse niin kuin koskaan kokenut, että työpaikalla niin kuin mun huivinkäyttö tai mun taustana olisi vaikuttanut siihen, että miten mua on kohdeltu tai minun on suhtauduttu. Et mulla on sattunut tosi hyvä tuuri. Et jos mulla on ollut sellainen tosi hyvä työnantaja, niin se on ollut mua kohtaan yhtä hyvä työnantaja kuin kaikille muillekin. Ja sitten jos on ollut sellainen, josta mä en ole välttämättä tykännyt, niin sit se on ollut ihan samalla lailla kaikille muillekin. Että siis ei ollut semmoista niin kuin taustasta johtuvaa tämmöistä diskriminaatiota. Ja kaikki olleet silleen, varsinkin ne kaikki tosi hyvät työnantajat, niin olleet tosi kannustaviakin kanssa. Et sillä lailla se on ollut vapauttavaakin, että työpaikalla tavallaan niin kun on pystynyt itsekin purkaamaan itsensä pois siitä stereotyyppisestä lokerosta, koska on huomannut, että siellä mun taustani ei vaikuttanut mitenkään, että se riippuu mun osaamisesta ja siitä mun työpanoksestani. Tosi iso kiitos mun työnantajille, he eivät tuskin kuuntele näitä, mutta kuitenkin. Mutta sitten taas mä oon kuullut kavereilta taas erilaisia kokemuksia, että sitten taas on saatettu vaikka olettaa, että osaa tiettyä kieltä, koska on tietystä taustasta. Ja sitten sitä on myöskin vähän niin kuin oletettu, että sähän sitten niin kuin palvelet myöskin näitä tietystä taustasta tulevia ihmisiä, koska nyt sattuu olemaan huivia kättä ja mahdollisesti myöskin jotain etnistä taustaa vielä päälle. Tai sitten myöskin sitäkin, että on ehkä tarjottu tietynlaisia tehtäviä, jotka ehkä voivat liittyä niin kuin just niin kuin, siis voi olla sellainen niin kuin työpaikka, missä palvellaan kaikkia, mutta sitten justiinsa niin kuin tarjotaan maahanmuuttajille suunnattua palvelua niin kuin tarjontaa sitten just niin kuin, jos sattuu olemaan muslimitaustainen, vaikka voi olla, että kiinnostaa joku muu asia, vaikka nuorisopuoli tai joku muu niin kuin enemmän. Siis tiedostan lähipiirin kautta, että sitä diskriminaatiota tehdään myös työpaikoilla, mutta siis on myös itsellä on nyt ollut niin hyvä tuuri, että itse en ole kokenut.
Kiitoksia. Haluaisiko Emma kommentoida myös lyhyesti? Onko sinulla ollut kokemuksia?
No, sanotaan, että mun kokemukset on ehkä enemmänkin just pohjautunut siihen, mitä olen ystäviltä kuullut, ja niin kuin näkisin ehkä sen tilanteen, että niin väärää kuin se onkin, niin tällaisessa syrjintätilanteissa valitettavaa on, että niin pukeutuminen vaikuttaa todella paljon siihen, miten musliminaiset kohdataan, ja voisin vetää tällaisen varovaisen johtopäätöksen, että mitä peittävämmin pukeutuu tai ns. Perinteisesti, niin sitä vaikeampaa voi työmarkkinoilla olla. Ja mä myös näkisin ehkä, että samanlaisia haasteita, kun kohtaa tai kun puhutaan työelämästä, niin voi myös olla muilla maahanmuuttajataustaisilla naisilla, että se ei välttämättä ole vain musliminaisiin kohdistuvaa syrjintää tai ennakkoluuloja. Ja mitä ehkä tällainen NS vähän ulkopuolelta tarkastellen, niin vaikuttaa siltä, että on tosi alakohtaista, minkälaisia joustamisen keinoja ja ikään kuin tämmöisiä neuvottelutilanteita on onnistuttu sitten luomaan, vaikka terveydenhuoltoala näyttäisi esimerkiksi pukeutumisen tukemisen osalta olevan edelläkävijä, ja sitten tietysti tietyt asiantuntijatehtävät ynnä muut yksityisen puolen, missä ei ole minkäänlaisia velvoitteita työasulle, niin ne on varmasti niin pukeutumisen osalta vähän helpompia paikkoja olla. Ja tuo, mitä Afra nosti esiin, että vaan paperilla on tätä moninaisuutta, niin se on tosi ikävää. Mutta mä kehotan tällaisessa tilanteessa itsekin virkamiehenä niin pyytämään ne nimitysmuistiot, koska ne on ihan lakisääteisesti tehtävä, ja siellähän sitten on perusteltu, miksi johonkin henkilöön on valittu, että jos kokee, että siinä on sitten ollut tällaista syrjintää, ja näistähän tietysti aina voi sitten, jos kokee, että on lainvastaista menettelyä ollut, niin viedä näitä asioita eteenpäin. Et valitettavat kilpailu korkeista työpaikoista on aika kova, mutta ehdottomasti kannattaa puuttua ja hakea muutosta, jos mahdollista.
Kiitos. Hyviä nostoja teit. Ajattelisin itse asiassa, että voisin kysyä tuolta Annalta tässä kohtaa, että minkä verran ajattelet, että musliminaisilla tai yleisesti niin kuin esimerkiksi maahanmuuttajataustaisilla naisilla on tietoa näistä oikeuksistaan työelämässä?
Well, I would think like the women who come to us, like we have that neighborhood mothers training, so that is usually the place and time where we start to talk about that women's rights, and like not only in work life but in general also, like women's rights is human's rights, and like, you know, everything which is connected to like the situation at home and so on. So and sometimes I must say I personally am quite surprised that like there's so little knowledge often like when it comes to the women's rights, like and the how do you say, like the feeling to speak up. And of course, like it's for every community, it's like different experience, and like we have a lot of women with different backgrounds and who come from different social surroundings and so on. So I think it is quite important, like not only what we are doing, but in general to like talk about more, like what are my rights, and like when it comes to women also to think about like how can we how can we combine like the life at home with the kids and like at work and so on. So from that part, I think it's very, very important, and it's very much needed still, like even today, 2021. So I think that is something we really have to go like forward and well, talk about it and speak up about it.
Thank you. And I think the third question is a little bit the same, because I would like to ask that what kind of measures would be needed to improve the involvement of Muslim women in Finland, and also maybe in work life here in Finland. So maybe Sandra can start from this one.
Yes. Well, I think first we have to think about the media in Finland. Media promote a way of thinking where they address Muslim women negatively, as they are suppressed with no knowledge, no education, no voice, which is not true. Like Muslim women can be what any other woman or even men can do. For instance, Muslim women can drive cars in all Muslim countries, but only one country had like a law that prevent Muslim to drive. But media stories like always generalize what is like a case in one country to everyone else. They like the behavior of individual Muslim is not analyzed, but it is like generalized to consider Islam as a violent religion, which is like very easily can be like observed, always linked to terrorism. So the media produce all the time negative feelings about like Islam, which is also seen on the behaviors on like towards Muslims. So first of all, we need to change some kind of double standards that they are here in Finland. This type of media is to be considered as, for me, I see as a hate speech, not as freedom of expression. Like Finland was able to, for instance, to stop expressions or media releases which are against, for instance, choosing a gender identity. But they cannot do same for a religion. I don't think so. I think that they can do that. So stop that double, try to stop this like double standards policy. Also trade unions, they have like very important role to play to understand the culture of immigrants, their backgrounds, their religion, and try also to defend for their rights in their collective agreements. Why not? And what about also the employers organizations? Why they don't provide like workshops as well for the local employers? Let's say about like Islamic religion and Islamic like culture in general, or Islamic religion in general. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Very good points. What about maybe Afrah? Do you want to add something to what Sandra said?
Yes, of course. If I understood the question correctly, it was like what the community or the society could do to support international women in working life.
This was what measures would be needed to improve the involvement of Muslim women?
Yes, great.
Yeah,
I quite much agree like what Sandra said. I think also like definition of the law about hate speech and freedom of speech. This is the most powerful thing to define. I think that this should be defined again, and everything comes from up to down. So this we have already seen as the freedom of speech does not work as it's supposed to be when it comes to hate speech. Also trade unions, yes. And also what I see is that always there is a talk about needing to have more newcomers here in the country, in Finland, foreigners to come to open businesses or work like we need. But in reality, what I have seen for so many years, and when working with foreigners, or let's say like people who have moved to Finland and they want to work, they face difficulties which are like overwhelming. And it's again, here we come to just talk. It's just talk that we need more foreigners to work. What they should do is they should make it easier for them, the path to open business. For example, now what I see when I'm working with people who want to open business in Finland, they want to come from abroad. It's extremely difficult. It's very complicated, and the officers they are not prepared for that yet. They are confused themselves. This should be like made more easy, made more simple, should be made more open, because the more we see different people working and having businesses and like always there in the society, the easier this all works in the good for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mitä Nuha ajattelet asiasta? Te olette tehneet muun muassa Nuoret Muslimit ry:ssä paljon työtä esimerkiksi rasismin vastaisuuden kanssa, niin minkälaisia asioita sinulla nousee tähän liittyen?
Joo, kiitos. Joo, siis mä en valitettavasti kuullut paljon, mitä Afras sanoi, koska täällä oli lapsijuttu. Mutta siis mä ehdin kuulla Sandran puheenvuoron ja olen hyvin pitkälti samaa mieltä, että se mediakuva muslimeista on hyvin yksipuolinen, hyvin kapea ja hyvin negatiivinen. Ja se on nyt semmoinen asia, mikä sitten ainakin itse joutuu hirveän paljon tai joutui nuorempana paljon niin kuin työstää, että kun mediapuolelta tulee niin paljon negatiivisia uutisointeja muslimeista, niin sitten just sitä pitää niin kuin prosessoida, että ekaksi se, että okei, mä oon kuitenkin niin kuin kuulun tähän yhteiskuntaan, vaikka niin kuin se ajattelee minunlaisista ihmisistä niin tällä tavalla. Ja sitten vaikka joidenkin mielestä niin kuin, vaikka on hyvä asia niin kuin kaventaa muslimien oikeudet, esimerkiksi jos joku huivi niin kuin kielletään jossain maassa niin kuin jossain, niin kuin vaikka koulun käynnin yhteydessä. Ja sitten sitä täällä niin kuin on lupa niin kuin näyttää, että se on niin kuin hyvä asia, että sitä pidetään sosiaalisesti hyväksyttävänä, sitä juhlimista asian tiimoilta. Ja yksi toinen juttu, niin kuin mikä tulee mieleen, missä voisi tehdä parannusta, niin kuin tuon mediakuvan monipuolistamisen lisäksi on myös niin kuin just niin kuin kouluharrastuspuolellakin niin kuin ehkä voisi myöskin katsella kriittisemmin, että että kohdellaanko nuoria jotenkin eri tavalla ennakkoluulojen takia. Ja että just vaikka niin kuin opoon yhteydessä niin kuin ohjataan oppilaita samalla lailla taustasta huolimatta. Ehkä jopa voisi niin kuin miettiä, että jos tulee jostain sellaisesta taustasta, missä ei samalla lailla niin kuin nähdä mahdollisuuksia, onhan se niin kuin ihan todistettava, jos tulee matalasta sosioekonomisesta taustasta, niin sitten ei osata unelmoida samalla lailla kuin jos sitten vanhemmat on paremmalta sosioekonomiselta taustalta. Että tavallaan niin kuin uskalletaan rohkaista nuoria myös unelmoimaan isosti. Et varsinaisesti niin kuin työelämässä sitten ainakaan niillä aloilla, missä mä oon ollut, eli mä oon ollut koulutuksessa, sitten on ollut tutkijana luonnontieteellisellä puolella, sitten ollut yhdessä mediatalossa markkinointitutkijana ja sitten ollut myöskin niin kuin tekemässä ihan vain pikaruokaravintolahommia Burger Kingillä. Niin niissä kun mä en ole kohdannut sitä diskriminaatiota, niin mulla itselläni semmoinen tunne, että työmaailma olisi kyllä valmis ottamaan meitä vastaan. Mutta sitten just se, että meillä pitäisi olla enemmän rohkeutta unelmoida ja sitten se, että nuoret uskaltaa enemmän unelmoida, niin he tarvitsisivat just niin kuin sellaisen ympäristön, mikä rohkaisee heitä unelmoimaan.
Kiitoksia. Miten esimerkiksi Anna sinulla työskentelet myös musliminaisten parissa ja yleisestikin, niin miten näet nämä teemat, mitä Sandra ja Nuha ja Afra nosti esille?
Joo, eli no, tosi tärkeä juttua. Eli I think I completely agree with what you said, and I would even go a little bit further and say, like, when we talk about diversity, I think, like, it's, in my opinion, it's like a two-way street. Like, it's not only coming from like, I don't know, Muslim women or like whoever is in need of something, but it should also come, especially in the work life, from the employers. And there, I think, is very much needed, for example, that diversity training, sensibility training, or like that understanding that well, that we are like an open society. We need the workers, and Finland needs the workers, but like, it's a two-way side. It cannot be the way that we as women do everything, like, you know, to be the perfect woman and in the hope of finally getting a workplace. But I think it should also come from the other side, and from employers who say, like, yes, we offer that and we are like ready to do that. And I think that is a little bit like the tricky thing at the moment, that some companies are still not yet ready. They still might be scared to start that, and like they might not understand, like, what are the benefits of a diverse work culture, for example. So in general, I think, like, more sensitivity, like gender sensitivity, like cultural sensitivity, like religious sensitivity, whatever comes to our mind. I think all of us can need more of that. However, I would also like to say maybe that there's, like, community-wise, especially in Helsinki, there's happening a lot, like especially for women, like that women in tech, women or mothers in business, the international working women of Finland. So there's also, like, starting to grow, like, really big communities of women for women who are supporting and who are really doing, like, good work. So and well, of course, but we need more of that, and especially we need also more the employers and like the services on board who are, like, supporting that and who bring those aspects forward.
Thank you. And I think from here we can just go for the fourth question. So the fourth question is, how could Muslim communities support the employment and social inclusion of women? Eli miten muslimiyhteisöt itsessään pystyvät tukea naisten työllistymistä ja osallisuutta? Haluaisiko Emma aloittaa tästä vaikka, kun et äsken kommentoinut tuohon kysymykseen?
Kiitos. Joo, no mulla ehkä tähän tuli päällimmäisenä mieleen vaikea tehtävä, eli yhteisön asenteiden muutos, miten saada naiset osaksi yhteiskuntaa, jotenkin tavallaan näkemään sitä kokonaisuutta, että se naisten työllistyminen ei auta naista vain taloudellisesti, mutta myös sitten helpottaa kotoutumista ja yhteiskunnan ymmärtämistä. Ja tällä on suoranaisia vaikutuksia myös täällä syntyneiden lasten tulevaisuuteen ja siihen, miten lapset löytää paikkansa tässä yhteiskunnassa. Ja mun mielestä hirveästi puhutaan syrjinnästä, koulukiusaamisesta ja kaikesta muusta, niin se, että on osa tätä yhteiskuntaa, ei mun mielestä missään nimessä tarkoita sitä, että sun pitää millään tavalla luopua siitä sun omasta identiteetistä ja omasta kulttuuritaustasta, mutta se, että sä omalla esimerkillä kannustat sun lapsia juurikin, että nimenomaan sitten unelmoidaan ja osataan nähdä tämän yhteiskunnan tarjoamat mahdollisuudet, ja niin se on vaan ikään kuin laittaisi rahaa pankkiin niin sanotusti. Ja myöskin, niin, no en mä oikeastaan tiedä, mitä muuta mä vähän tässä katson, mitä mä olin tuohon edelliseen kohtaan, jos siitä olisi tähän vielä jotain muuta. Mutta ylipäätään semmoinen niin kuin polarisaation sitä vastaan taistelu on myös, että tavallaan mennään rohkeasti mukaan sinne ja mennään rohkeasti myös ylipäätänsä mukaan siihen, että muslimit voi puhua itse niin kuin omista asioistaan, eikä anneta muiden puhua meidän puolesta tai muiden päättää, millaisia maahanmuuttajataustaiset tai muslimit on, niin sitten kun mennään sinne pöytiin, missä näistä asioista puhutaan ja omalla esimerkillä näytetään, että wow, että muslimit on aivan loistavia ihmisiä, ihan yhtä loistavia ihmisiä kuin kaikki muutkin, niin siitä se sitten pikkuhiljaa lähtee. Mutta siinä on varmaan myös sellainen pelko, ennakkoluulot, kaikki nämä, mitä yhdistyy nopeasti. Ei tule sitä tukea, kotoutumisongelmat tai kotoutumissuunnitelma on mun mielestä semmoinen, mitä tarvitsisi kehittää Suomessa, ja että kotoutumisessa ohjattaisiin myös niin kuin niitä naisia työllistymiseen, että tavallaan musta tuntuu, että kotoutumisessa jotenkin hirveän helposti se on sitä sukupuolisidonnaista, että enemmänkin kannustetaan miehiä sit siihen työllistymiseen ja naisten kohdalla sitten he ei saa sitä omaa tukea ja sitten tämmöiset ajatukset myös jää sitten elämään siinä muslimiyhteisössä. Mutta ehkä mä lopetan tämän tähän näin ja sitten ehkä vielä pyydän lisäpuheenvuoroa, jos tulee muiden kommenteista vielä jotain muuta mieleen.
Hyvä, kiitos. Entä Afra, what about Afra? You are very active in also in Muslim communities. What kind of thoughts you have on this matter?
Yes, thank you. Well, I would say like being an example, just by your own example, the women. Of course, like I'm happy to say that already there are so many women who are active, foreigners and Muslim women. They are like, so many of them are already active. So supporting them, giving them like some kind of support, some kind of like, how would I say, we can support each and everyone. We should support each other. This is what I always think, not just Muslim women, but all women. Whenever I see a woman close to me or friend or any woman, and especially if she's a Muslim woman, opening her own company or starting her own job, immediately I want to show an example by supporting her, not just promoting her work, her publishing her work and showing, but also buying her services, purchasing, whether it's healthcare or anything, because I really believe we should really just support each other. And also the support should come from home as well, because women, when we go to work or when we establish our own business, it's not just that. Then we have also responsibilities at home, quite a lot. So also it should be recognized that then at home should be a balance between that. So that kind of support. Many times I have heard the women say that, how can I go to work, or how can I go even to finish course to learn the language? I cannot go because I have to cook, I have to clean, I have to take care of the children. I know people like that. I know women like that. They say, I cannot go. I don't want to go because I have to be 24 hours here at home and take care of that. So there has to be some kind of balance in that as well. And also, of course, I hope that the negative experiences will sometimes end, that very skilled and qualified women, when they apply for diverse jobs, they will see that in the end, this was all just window decorating and just words. So all that is some kind of a message from the society, and supportive or non-supportive message, and discouraging or encouraging for them. Thank you.
Thank you. What about Sandra? What kind of thoughts you have on how Muslim communities could support more women?
Well, here I want to be like honest as like Muslim, and I want to talk like about my opinion that sometimes we have this kind of bad image about Muslim women in home country or abroad or in Finland or wherever, is sometimes because of some Islamic leaders who share wrong information about Islam rules, religion, for own political agendas. This question is very important, and many things can be done actually. For instance, share correct information related to religion and highlight the role of women in Islam. As we studied like in home country about religion and Islam, in time of Prophet Muhammad, women were very strong and they had like very high position in the community. So why now we see that like women in most of Muslim communities, they put them as a lower level? This is not because of what Islam said, but this is because of some Muslim communities try to promote this wrong information for political reason, for cultural reason, or mix between culture, religion, politics. all these like reasons. I always see that many services here in Finland are supporting immigrants and Muslim women, but we see that really those like services are not reachable for the right people who need it. Maybe because husbands don't allow the women to participate or other reasons, as what Afra said, like regarding like working at home and taking care of kids. So Muslim communities need to work with the whole family members, like with the new generation kids, with men, with women, not only with women, and also try to break like taboos and discuss like some topics that are not like really discussing like from the Finnish side, maybe because they see that this is like something that is like putting themselves in something that is not like privacy of this religion. So we as Muslim communities, we have to open these discussions and talk about this hot topic issues to make a step forward and change what we have currently. And be, of course, like open and not as isolated as communities. Like try also to cooperate with other communities, with the Finnish community. I see like Amal Ry is very good example in this, like to show the right image about Muslim women. And the project this like See Me is like, I see that it is like very good name even and meaningful name. Yes.
Thank you. Nuha, haluatko lisätä jotain? Minkälaisia ajatuksia sinulla nousee? Esimerkiksi mitä Sandra sanoi äsken.
Joo, no Sandra aika hyvin katsoi munkin ajatukset. Mulla on nyt video pois päältä, koska nettiyhteys ei ole kovin hyvä tällä hetkellä. Mut joo, ehkä semmoinen lisäys myöskin, että me voitaisiin just enemmän niin kuin, mitä se on englanniksi, celebrate niin kuin toisiamme. Eli kun joku menestyy tai joku yrittää tehdä jotain, niin enemmän niin kuin kannustaa nähdä se toisen tekemä työ ja olla silleen, että hyvä, että teet tuota. Ja sitten jos pystyy, niin just niin kuin vaikka ostaa niitä palveluita, jos joku ryhtyy yrittäjäksi tai muuta, mutta siis sillä lailla, että suhtaudutaan hyvin positiivisesti kaikkeen siihen, mitä muutkin tekee. Ja ehkä myöskin sitä, että ei arvoteta mitään ammatteja, että siivoojan ammatti on yhtä hyvä kuin insinöörinkin ammatti. Et tärkeintä on se, että jokainen löytää vaan sen oman juttunsa sitten.
Kiitos. Entä Anna? What kind of thoughts you have? Do you have some kind of thoughts?
Yes,
on Muslim communities.
Well, in general, like of course, also Muslim communities, but I think especially what Afra said, like I think it's very important to support each other as women in general, like like I can like relate a lot to that, you know, like women have to stay home and like do the dishes and like clean the house and do the cooking and so on. And I think that is unfortunately still like in a lot of communities the case, and that is something we still have to work on as women, also to give ourselves like the kind of free space, like that oma aika. And like in general, I would think like all communities like should see women like as who they are and who they want to be. And like the things they should do is like to support the women to become who they want to be. So I think that is a really important point. And of course, that depends a lot on what kind of community it is. It can be, I believe there is not a perfect community, you know, so it can have different angles and different directions. But of course, I think the main point here is that we say like all women are important and they have the right to speak up and they have the right to be who they are in work life, in their like private life. And yes, so that is like, I'm very much in for supporting women and having a good and positive female network. So yes.
Thank you. I think Emma has some comments.
Joo, tuli mieleen tuosta, kun mitä Nuha ja itse asiassa muutkin sanoitte siitä, että että kun joku tekee jotain, niin pitää tukea ja ostaa niitä palveluja, osoittaa tukea, jakaa tietoutta, niin mä haluaisin ehkä Afra sulta kysyä, kun sä sanoit, että sä oot lähtenyt politiikkaan mukaan ja olet ehdolla kunnallisvaaleissa, niin ensinnäkin, että koitko, että sä saat puolueelta tai muilta poliitikoilta, kunnallispoliitikoilta tukea musliminaisena, kun ei ole ehkä kovin yleistä vielä, että uskalletaan lähteä politiikkaan, ja miten sitten myöskin koet sen tuen tai palautteen, mitä sait omalta yhteisöltä, jos saa tässä vaiheessa jo ehkä tämä hautumaan vaan, jos ei saa vielä esittää jatkokysymyksiä.
Kiitoksia. Afra, voit vastata. Otetaan vaan kysymyksiä Emma tässä loppuun.
Hyvä. Kiitos paljon kysymyksistä, todella hyviä kysymyksiä. Joo, kyllä, ehdottomasti puolueelta sain todella hyvän tuen ja edelleen sain. Siis tämä on asia, mitä mä todella arvostan. Ja se kädenojennus, mikä sieltä tuli, mä koin, että mä en voi tehdä muuta kuin olla vastaamatta. Niin mä en voi olla vastaamatta siihen. Mä koin, että mun täytyy sitä ottaa kiinni. Se oli niin, itse asiassa meidän kaupunginjohtaja Henkoht soitti mulle ja hän pyysi, hän sanoi, että mä todella toivon ja pyydän, että sä tulet meille ehdolle. Mä sanoin, että okei, lähtökohtaisesti olen myönteinen, mutta tavataan, sovitaan, jutellaan ja katsotaan. Ja jos edelleen kaikki näyttää siltä, että se on mulle okei, niin sitten mut jutellaan. Ja sitten ilman muuta ja sovittiin tapaaminen. Ja totta kai mulla oli se ensimmäinen asia, mitä mä sanoin puoluetoverille, joka on myös muslimiveli, sanoin myös, että niin kauan kuin mun täytyy se selvittää ensin, että mikään ei mene mun uskonnon kanssa ristiriitaisesti, niin sitten. Mutta siis ehdottomasti se tuki, että sitä mä arvostan, että he olivat oikein puhuneet siellä ja ajatelleet, että veli oli sen asian sinne ajanut ja oli puhuneet ja ajatelleet, että me tarvitaan musliminainen, joka pystyy niin kuin puhumaan, että se kielitaito on riittävä ja niin poispäin ja tavallaan voisi niin kuin toimia esimerkkinä ja kannustuksena ja meidän niin kuin asioita käsitellä ja niin poispäin, että todella kyllä. Ja kyllä sitten kun tavattiin siellä muitakin niin kuin ministereitä ja muita, niin he todella toivotti tervetulleeksi ja sanoi, että mitä tahansa, jos tarvit, niin ota vaan yhteyttä ja niin poispäin. Ja olin siitä myös iloinen, että näin, että meillä on ehdolla puolueessa aika paljon muslimeita. Okei, he ovat suurin osa veliä, mutta kuitenkin niin kuin, oli siellä joku nainenkin, aktiivinen nainen, mutta ehdottomasti kyllä. Yhteisöltä myös on todella kiitollinen, todella hyvin otettu vastaan ja sitä arvostan ihan hirveästi ja toistaiseksi tosi hyvää palautetta tullut. Että totta kai, että muutama sora-ääni sieltä on tullut, mutta heillä ei ole ollut semmoista, niin kuin mä en edes tunnen näitä ihmisiä, ehkä ei ole ollut sitä tietoa ja ymmärrä, että mistä syystä mä lähdin ja mikä tämä lähtötilanne oli ja niin poispäin. Ja mun mielestä nämäkin asiat sitten on selvitetty, mutta muuten tosi hyvin. Ja toivon tietysti hirveästi sitä kannustusta edelleen, koska todellakin mä koen, että se on meille kaikille onnistuminen, jos niin kuin yksi meistä tavallaan pystyy, niin kuin tavallaan otetaan vastaan ja kannustetaan siihen, että pääsee semmoiseen, niin kuin, koska me ollaan hyvin suuri ryhmä niin kuin kuntalaisia ja se on hirveän tärkeää, että tavallaan meidän asioita ymmärtävä ihminen myös on siellä, joka pystyy niitä ottaa huomioon. Enkä rajaa vaan niin kuin pelkästään muslimeihin, mutta maahanmuuttajien niin kuin yleensäkin. Kiitos.
Kiitoksia. Emmalla on vielä käsi ylhäällä. Haluatko jatkaa jatkokommentin vai? Okei.
Se oli vahinko, anteeksi.
Tässä, onko ihan joku pikakysymys ehkä tai kommentti voidaan ottaa, jos tulee. Meillä on tässä sellainen minuutti ehkä aikaa ennen kuin alkaa sitten toi Lindan vuoro. Mutta tuolla chatissa ei ainakaan ole näemmä nyt kysymyksiä. Onko joku, joka haluaisi esittää jonkun nopean kysymyksen tai kommentin?
We have a hand raised by Jennifer.
Jennifer, ole hyvä.
So Jennifer, would you like to ask?
No, I just wanted to comment something.
Yes, sure.
Okay, I think this is not just only about Muslim women. Most times in Africa, or they don't really value women like that. They just expect women to just focus on the kids, cook, and do some house chores. So they don't really, understand that women also have values in the society. They don't understand that we can rule the society more. If they give women more space to open up, we have a lot of things to do. But because of we don't have the space, then most times, most of us don't produce at the end of the day. And those things that we did not produce, and that is why the society is still the way we are. So in a program like this, I love to enjoy such program because it promotes women. There are some women that have a lot of things to develop in the society, but because of the society is not giving them enough space, so they keep things by themselves. So this is a very nice program. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your comment. And I think we need to go forward now, but thank you for all the panelists. It was a great discussion, and hopefully we will have another discussion again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a very good discussion. Thank you.
And yes, thank you everybody for participating and making it a successful panel discussion. Okay, so let's continue. So we have our program now, continuing with a guest speaker, Linda. Okay, just a minute. Just give me a second. Yes, so she's joining us from Turkey, and I have a little presentation for Linda as well. Can you see my screen? Yep. So, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, here's a little introduction about Linda, that Linda was born in Finland, but identifies herself as a cosmopolitan and a lifelong learner of languages. She's an associate professor as an associate researcher at the Center for Islam and Global Affairs in Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University, where the focus of her research is on Islamophobia and Muslim minorities. She's also doing her PhD from Ibn Khaldun University with a thesis on Finnish Muslim converts' experiences on Islamic phobia. So, Linda, welcome, and thank you for joining us here today as a guest speaker. So I would continue. Would you like to give an introduction about your research in your own words to the audience today?
Yes, thank you so much, Umama, for this introduction. And actually, I have to correct you on one thing, which is that I'm not joining you from Turkey, but from Bosnia and Herzegovina, because I have just recently moved.
Yes, I saw.
From Turkey to Bosnia, but it doesn't matter. Nevertheless, I'm abroad. However, I'm very pleased, and I was very, very happy when I got the invitation from Amal Ry to join this event, which I have been following since its beginning. As you might know, Amal Ry is also a member organization of the European Forum of Muslim Women, where I am currently functioning as the General Secretary. So the work of Amal is very much interesting to my all kinds of activities that I'm doing, notwithstanding my PhD thesis, of course. So I have prepared answers to the questions that you're gonna ask me during the next, I think, like an hour or so that we will have together.
Yes.
And yeah, so basically, I'm just gonna first tell you a little bit about my PhD thesis as such and my research interests, right? And the background to all of this. So I've been living abroad since 2008. I left Finland, and I've been moving around from Germany to Jordan and then to Turkey, and now I am in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, you know, in everyday discussions and also, of course, also during conferences where I meet fellow academics or activists, I'm oftentimes asked what the situation of Muslims in Finland is like. Everybody's always very interested, right? So is it as bad as it is in other European countries, for example? How much Islamophobia is there? And for most of these people, in their faces, I can sense this kind of an expectation of hearing some affirmative news of a non-racist and inclusive society in which, you know, all the citizens have their equal rights, opportunities, and are recognized for their kind of varying identities. Because Finland is, after all, worldwide very much perceived as one of the most successful social welfare states, right? With a high level education system and a newly elected all-female government, right? Leadership that kind of harvests much respect nowadays around the world. So sometimes I find actually myself bored needing to provide the same old answer to this question, which unfortunately from my side is everything else except a positive one. So as I see it, Finnish Muslims are not in any differing position from Muslims living elsewhere in Europe. Even though the historical context in Finland, you know, or the current legislative context, you know, it might be in a better condition in terms of religion, you know, because we don't have those legislative measures like Emma, by the way, also mentioned earlier, where there are freedom of religion would be too much restricted, or that we would have blanket bans on headscarves. However, a skimming exercise through the country chapters on Finland in the European Islamophobia report shows, which has been, by the way, authored for the past 4 or 5 years. This exercise will show you, if you take a look at the chapters, that the Finnish society manifests year by year Islamophobic political initiatives and hate crimes with anti-Muslim racist bias. And there is that hate speech fueled by media, politicians, and other key figures in public debates. And since we are also at the moment in the middle of the week against racism, we have this week against racism, let it be noted that there is this recent scholarly work that investigates the socio-political situation of Muslim minorities in Europe. And it refers compellent to this trend of far-right political parties making their way into the national governments during the past decade or so. And, you know, this trend is depicted as a kind of like a new wave of blatantly racist ideology, which is said to be a continuum of the Second World War and even the colonial past of European countries. And it paves its way into these discussions of what it means to, what is Europe, what it means to be a European, what is Finland, what it means to be a Finnish person, right? But nevertheless, in all of these different contexts, we should keep in mind that even though the Finnish society might not have been affected by overseas colonialism, and why do I say overseas colonialism? Because I recognize also the colonialism that our state has kind of initiated towards the Sami people, or the Orientalist mindset that would shape these attitudes towards Muslims in UK, France, or Holland. There is this persistent racism in the Finnish society towards ethnic minorities, and it has been a social pathology, as I see it, for the past 2 centuries, actually. So it can be detected in the early 20th century newspaper articles, which announced back then restrictions on on Jewish residents in Finland, or it has been present in the forceful assimilation policies targeting the Sami population, or the displacement of Roma children into children care homes, as well as what we had in the 90s, this organized white supremacist skinhead movement, right? So this is just to note that anti-Muslim racism or Islamophobia also in Finland, you can understand it on one hand in the context of these specificities, as we are speaking today in terms of Muslim women's integration, headscarves, experiences in the labor market, everyday experiences. And on the other hand, also as a kind of like a continuum of this racist ideology that persists in the imagination of the Finnish society, reflecting indeed like this whole idea of who is and who is allowed to be a Finn, right? So today I'm not going to go into talking about history of Muslim presence in Finland or all of that, but we can say that Muslims who have lived a long time in Finland, who have either immigrated to Finland or who are born in Finland, they are striving toward claiming their rights and practicing their religion, while maintaining this visible position in the public space and being engaged in diverse spheres of life. And this is something that we have wonderfully also seen today during this seminar, in my opinion. However, the religiosity of Muslims in Finland, and especially of those who are visible in the public space, especially that kind of a religiosity that manifests itself, to the outside observer, it has become an integral part of this popular discourse, as we know from politicians and the media. And it intertwines in these debates about liberalism and immigration and other forms of accommodation of our religious practices, and of course multiculturalism, right? So basically, also in my research, actually, I am focusing, as I told you before in that one comment that got interrupted by my internet connection, but my research has focused more or less on convert Muslims. And convert Muslims, they are, in all of this that I just spoke about, they are in kind of a contested position when it comes to debates on religion, race, and identity, for example. So my thesis investigates these Finnish convert Muslims' everyday experiences and their understanding about their identity as both Muslims and Finns. So I'm looking into the ways of how they negotiate these two categories of their social identity and the interplay of these two categories, and the ways how the convert Muslims construct and perform these identities. And I would say that they evolve mainly around two main discourses, which, however, do not occur in a vacuum, unaffected by each other. So the first of that discourse is kind of an external one, which is like the discourse of the surrounding society, whose attitudes are in the context of this kind of like Islamophobia and anti-Muslim racism. Many of the things that we have actually touched upon today as well. And the second discourse is an internal one, where I would say that emerges from this self-perception of the convert Muslims about themselves, and the subjective understanding of how do they embody basically both their Finnish identity and both their Muslim identity. So it should be said that actually for my research, I did interview both female and male converts. And even though my focus wasn't work life or the labor markets, then obviously these topics, both of them, they kind of popped up very frequently in the discussions, because they are very much connected to the everyday experiences and to the general participation in the society.
Thank you. That's a good intro for the research. And my next question, as you can see, would be like, what has been the Finnish stance on Muslim women and headscarf ban? Headscarf, actually, just what has been their perspective on this?
Okay. So, all right, now we're getting more into the hard discussion, as I have also prepared. So, okay, the current public and political discourse in certain aspects in Finland, it focuses on advocating this idea that integration of Muslims or Muslim immigrants into the Finnish society would be impossible, totally impossible. These are the voices that we hear, especially from the far right scene. So it's interesting that despite the fact that, statistically throughout the years, throughout the history of immigration to Finland, the majority of immigrants have been actually Christians. The demographic change, however, and the visibility of Islam in the public sphere has put Muslims into the spotlight, along with challenges to governance of minority rights and multiculturality, of course. So if you follow any discussion on immigration or integration, then mostly it's always about Muslims, even though, as I just said, interestingly enough, the majority of immigrants do have a Christian background, and not, in that sense, by all logic, Muslims shouldn't be in the spotlight, but they are. So the discourse is hereby then framed by these dichotomies, these juxtapositions of Western civilization, basically, versus Islam, while the arguments echo the idea of an inherent incompatibility of Islam and Muslim citizens with so-called Finnish values and lifestyle. So a special attention amidst of these discussions is, of course, given to the headscarf. It is then oftentimes misunderstood and misrepresented in the mainstream media in Finland and the public discussion. It should be also noted that by now over 20 EU countries, more than 20 EU countries, have been affected by legal discussions regarding banning the headscarf in its one way, one form or the other, because I'm including here, although I'm speaking about the headscarf, I'm also including the debates around the face veil in that regard. So it's obvious that the threat that the scarf is claimed to present, to the European societies or to the Finnish society, if we want to look into that, it's like it's argued by being this visible mark of religiosity, and it's an alleged issue of security, or of gender equality. Yes. And this speaks, in my opinion, for the dimensions of how Muslim women are central to discussions surrounding integration and religion in Finland. So even though our Muslim population is proportionally not as big as it is in other European countries, the question of following, for example, France's example in banning the headscarf has been raised in Finnish politics, although this has been done without any success. Yeah. So so far there have been two different positions on Muslim pupils, for example, wearing the headscarf, and these have been presented in parliamentary debates. Yeah. So for example, representative of the parliament, Päivi Räsänen from the Christian Democratic Party, she submitted a written question to for the government's position on such bans in Finland. Yeah, and but this was already a couple of years back. Yeah, and then in 2018, inspired by the Austrian debates on the headscarf, Laura Huhtasaari from the Finns party submitted a petitionary motion for the government to undertake measures for banning headscarves for girls in kindergartens and preschools. So here we're talking about the stances that politicians have taken on underage girls wearing the headscarf. And these arguments for the headscarf bans have drawn onto the idea that the headscarf would pose a hindrance for the girls to access equal opportunities as their peers. And Huhtasaari, in her motion, for example, she noted that the headscarves contribute to what she called emergence of parallel societies. And in her view, Muslim girls who are forced to wear the headscarf by their parents will be more likely to get marginalized from the majority already in their from the majority society already in their childhood. And of course, she also argued that the headscarf would contribute to gender discriminations, as Muslim parents do not force their sons to wear any specific clothes. Okay. So these discussions around forcing somebody to do something are connected to agency. And this is not an uncommon discursive theme in debates on Muslim girls and women in general either. So in 2013 and 2016, the Finnish member of the parliament, Vesa-Matti Saarakkala, who was representing the Finns party, he argued in his legislative proposals, which by the way both failed, on face veil bans, that such a ban was necessary because, I quote, there were reasonable grounds to believe that Muslim women in Finland or elsewhere in Europe in principle do not wear the face veil out of their own will, end of quote. So in political discourses, the headscarf has thus been reduced also in Finland to this practice that is allegedly only inflicted upon the girls and the women. And it then follows that it is associated with an imposed gender identity on the women. And one last example to be mentioned for this dates back to the presidential elections in 2018, when the candidate from the Finns party, again Laura Huhtasaari, argued during her election campaign that like she wrote a text, and she argued in the text that, you know, she made this grand statement that women of the Nordic societies are free. Yes. And this was kind of in context of attempting to justify her own idea why there should be a ban for the face veil. So she argued that the face veil, for example, was in no way a free choice of a woman, but a true freedom would be when she herself, and she was now taking herself as a comparison and as a good example, and I quote, as a woman from a Nordic country can decide in the morning whether to wear a pair of jeans or a skirt. So there was this emphasis of her on her cultural kind of like geographically bound identity that can be, you know, actually analyzed to imply a misrecognition of any Muslim woman living in Finland or any other Nordic country as a Nordic woman, you know. And instead, it hints that she is the the Muslim woman is the racial other, you know, who belongs to another space and do not belong within the identity that Huhtasaari herself claimed to dominate. And I'm speaking about this Nordic woman, right? So these are the kind of statements from politicians connected to the headscarf. These are statements on headscarf, on Muslim female bodies, and the identity of any woman in Finland who recognizes herself as a Muslim and possibly wants to wear the headscarf in the everyday practice. And these statements, they kind of like in overall, they contribute to this image that the politicians, they want to create about Muslim women's societal participation and integration in the society at large, we can say.
Alva, I have a little question connected to this,
yes.
This statement. Like, do you think there's an inclination towards legislation to change or put a ban on Muslim scarf, or is it just these a few handful of Finnish legislatures who want to comment and like, or is the trend growing towards the right side, towards being making a Muslim woman the other, and enforcing this ban? Do you think there's a trend that is changing towards or away from it?
Well,
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you unmuted me first.
Yeah, I wanted to mute myself. I'm sorry.
You muted me. Yes. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. It's okay. So, yeah, I mean, as far as I have observed, these debates, they always pop up in the context of some kind of elections. Okay, because obviously politicians, they are trying to catch votes with them, right? It's just a kind of like a play with campaigns, and a play with promises, and a play on this, creating these narratives of identity and who belongs where, and so on and so forth. But and then the debates don't really continue, right? They always pop up in this other context, or if there is a in another European country there is a debate, then they might catch up on that. But as Emma also mentioned before in the panel, I mean, Finland has pretty good legislation which protects Muslim women and the religious freedom. However, I mean, there are other democratic countries and very, let's say, yeah, I mean, democratic countries in Europe, in the EU, that have gone very far with the bans, right? Especially on the face veil. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this would come up also in Finland, and would be put on the table again, and be more emphasized. Because even though we say that, okay, our Muslim population is small, and even in comparison, the amount of women who are affected by these bans is small, but Switzerland has like 30 women who wear the face veil, but it was banned in the whole country. So in that sense, I wouldn't be surprised. But at the moment, I don't see that being the biggest threat. Although last year, I mean, I hope that the discussions in the Ministry of Interior on including the headscarf as an allowed part of, let's say, for example, police officers uniform, I hope that it goes to the right direction, and I'm looking forward to following on that discussion.
I hope so too. And I hope the Muslim representation as a minority grows in the legislature and the parliament as well in the future, so that, if there is some such challenge to us legally, then I feel like as a group we can represent our point of view is better than in the position that we are right now. So, how does headscarf ban affect the Muslim women's sense of belonging into the society and the integration that they're trying to partake?
Yes. Okay, so all right. So in the public discourse, the headscarf is often negatively associated, of course, with conceptions about Islam's inherent inclination towards terrorism, violence, backwardness, and fundamentalism. It has also been made into this symbol of women's oppression. It's like a piece of cloth that is being forced upon the women by their male relatives, oftentimes in these, debates. And it also becomes especially problematized when the public discourse emphasizes some kind of a socio-cultural, historical identity that is based on a Judeo-Christian tradition. And hence the headscarf, which is made into the definite symbol of Islam, which is also, by the way, very debatable, is framed as the symbol of a spatial and temporal other, so it doesn't belong to the society in the West, as we might say. So in the Finnish discourse, for example, these examples that I just gave from Laura Huhtasaari, they can be, for example, regarded in this context, So, the headscarf debates, they kind of become debates about the role of Islam as a whole in the Finnish society and in Europe at large. And it is, at the end of the day, about appropriate measures of governance of Islam, which is regarded and which is, of course, a minority religion in our context. So the narratives concentrate on picturing the headscarf as a hindrance to Muslim women's integration, as well as a general disturbance to the public space, and hence the governance of the headscarf by some legislative measures is being justified, And it is interesting that the Islamic practice of the headscarf is oftentimes put in the spotlight right when we are talking about national unity, national unity of Finland or the Finns, for example. So when the headscarf, which is visible in the public space, when it is otherized in this way, it reflects in more general sense, those values that the Finnish society wants to claim to be presenting, values upon which the members of the society might construct their social identities as Finns, implying that this practice, which is the headscarf, is not one of them. So it doesn't belong to those, like this is a thing that Finns do, for example, right? So ultimately, the issue of the veil or the headscarf, it reflects the question, who can be part of the Finnish society, right? So, and what does the Finnish society mean in its visible and invisible cultural aspects? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples from the fieldwork that I conducted for my PhD thesis. And here I'm, as I said, my focus was on convert Muslims. So obviously these are perspectives of convert Muslims. And it's not necessarily related to the question of what would a headscarf ban do or what it would mean to Muslim women, but you can read in between the lines, because if you consider these examples that I'm going to give in the sense of what the headscarf means for the women in general, and how do they relate to the headscarf when they are, in the work life or, going through everyday experiences. Okay. So, okay. There is, by the way, I have to note that these examples that I'm going to give, they're going to be in Finnish language because I have my interviews, they have been conducted in the Finnish language and I didn't yet translate them for the thesis. So excuse me for this lack of translation.
It's okay.
So the first quote is from a lady. So she said, mä haluan, että musta näkyy se, että mä oon muslimi, koska mä haluan edustaa islamia ja muslimeja, ja väkisinkin sitä edustaa, kun on pukeutunut tällä tavalla. End of quote. So this lady, she was talking about, her dress code and about representing Islam. And obviously she was a lady who was covered. Yes, she is using in her everyday dress code the headscarf. So here, for her, it was about practice, about visibility, and she would wear the headscarf even if she would think it wouldn't be obligatory. This is what she told me. She would still wear it. So she wants to represent Islam and Muslims, and she thinks that religious identity affects, a person's behavior in the sense, but she isn't sure if she has 100% absorbed all of those, behavioral codes. And she has been thinking about a lot of attributes such as patience, smiling, or being helpful, as a Muslim. Those are the values that we are carrying with us when we identify ourselves as Muslims and when we follow the example of the Prophet ﷺ. So here, if you think about it, it is such an integral part of a person's identity to actually be able to manifest that identity, right? And we are nowadays also talking about, rights of sexual minorities, their rights to manifest their identities as they wish, and we are working against discrimination against, sexual minorities. So we know, especially the people in the anti-racism activism, we know that these kind of things are very important to a person. So if you can think, if there would be a ban, it would obviously be a very massive kind of like intervention on how a person can and is allowed to manifest their identity, right? So the second quote is again, but from a lady, but another one. So she says, mä annoin sen mun huivin niissä valokuvissa, olla oman osansa. Mä en koskaan puhunutkaan siitä missään asiassa, ei kukaan edes kysynytkään. Että mä puhuin koko ajan lapsiperheistä, kun mä tunnen tosi paljon lapsiperheitä ja mä olen lapsiperheiden arjessa ja perheiden mukana ja mä tiedän heidän ongelmansa, niin se antoi sen pohjan siihen. Että mä luulen, että suurin osa äänistä tuli sitä kautta ja sitten ne heräteäänet, ne muut tuli sen kuvan kautta. This is a quote from a lady who was also like Afra, active in politics. So she went through this election process on the municipality election level, and she was talking about how she, for example, represented herself in the election campaigns as a hijabi wearing, headscarf wearing woman. Yeah. So so these were municipality council elections. She emphasized, or she explains that she didn't emphasize her religious identity in the campaign as such, but she focused on the topic for which she also wanted to join the council for, so that she could have an impact on the general level of the society, right? And in this case, it was family politics. So she also believes that it was indeed her topical focus that got her all the votes at the end, and only the visible side of her identity would raise attention in some people, so that they noticed that she was a candidate, So this is a good note, in my opinion, on how Muslims are not presented in everyday activity of life as primarily Muslims necessarily, but that they also want to be considered for their intellectual and other capabilities and possibilities to contribute to the society. And this is something that I think you guys have been talking about in this seminar throughout the day. The third quote is again from yet another lady. And she's talking about, the way how she relates, or she knows how other Muslim women relate to the way how they dress when they wear the headscarf. Okay, so she says, monethan miettii sitä, että miten he laittavat sen huivin. Onko se amira, onko se khimar vai onko se turbaani. Ja monet kokee, että se turbaani on niin kuin turvallisin vaihtoehto ja sulautuu parhaiten joukkoon. So this connects a little bit to what Emma said also previously in the last panel about her understanding how the Finnish society reacts more strongly to women wearing the headscarf in one certain way than the other, right? So this is, again, in my opinion, very important to consider, because we have to also recognize that there is such a diversity within Muslim women's way of expressing their identity through the dress code, right? So it is very frustrating oftentimes when headscarf debates or debates on a possible ban, they kind of as always, they any debates about Muslims tend to be that they paint this one monolithic picture of a Muslim woman, right? And yeah, so then I think, yes, I have one more question, a quote from another lady. She was this one is from a context when she was actually, she went to visit a family because she was applying to be a tutor for foreign languages for the child in the family. So she went to visit the family and she said that she received the comment as such, oot sä ollut jo niin kauan täällä Suomessa, että oot tottunut näihin ilmoihin? So this is a Finnish born, you know, a convert lady, right? And the family actually, they didn't comment on her outer appearance. So she wasn't sure if they realized that she's a convert or maybe, you know, like from a mixed race family or something. The only person who commented anything about her religious identity or her appearance or whatever was the grandmother of the child that she was about to tutor. And she asked about her adjustment to Finnish weather. So she didn't find these grandmother's comments offensive, but quite the contrary, she thought that they were cute, so to say. You know, because it was an old lady, a granny, you know, and she was already sympathetic. However, it is important to note here as well that the comment as such, you know, they imply this general, you know, understanding of, you know, a lady in a headscarf cannot be Finnish, right? So, you know, so automatically when this granny, you know, encountered a lady in a headscarf, her brain goes like, ah, this is a foreigner woman, right? So here again, you know, we may ask ourselves, you know, how do the women feel when, if we are talking about, you know, a possible headscarf ban, for example, you know, what is it that the society is trying to do with that? You know, they're kind of, are they trying to paint some kind of a unified picture of women on the street who, you know, present the Finnishness in a certain way, right? These things, by the way, that I'm mentioning, I mean, if anybody wants to pick up on them in the discussion, that would be great. You know, these are kind of like, you know, provocative questions that I'm also asking and throwing into the air, you know. And then the last quote that I would like to mention is from the same lady, that the previous one. And she was talking about, you know, the situation when she was considering going to this interview for the tutoring position. And she was reflecting actively upon, you know, how to dress when she goes there. And she says, I quote, meninkin sitten vaan ihan omana ittenäni. So she said that, you know, I just decided to go as myself, you know. So she was nervous going to this interview to meet the family for the tutoring position. And she was thinking about whether to put the headscarf as a turban, right? To wear it in a certain way, maybe not to, you know, awaken that much attention. But at the end of the day, she decided to wear the scarf the way she usually did back then, you know, and that was like close in the front, maybe, you know, just to demonstrate the similar way as mine is at the moment. So interesting part here for me was that, you know, she felt exactly that the turban would not have been representative of herself, right? So, you know, but the mere fact that she was even considering to change the style of her scarf tells me then about how she was thinking that it would make a difference. And we can connect this actually to the discussion of you know, how the society kind of like tends to maybe accept a certain kind of a way of the Islamic dress code, you know, as we say in Finnish, you know, like hampaita narskutellen, like, you know, but you know, but not, they don't really, they tolerate it, you know, but they don't really want it, but they might tolerate it. And also there is a huge discussion that we could have on the term of tolerance as such and whether it's a good concept or not. But yeah, I mean, these are kind of like, you know, perspectives, insights from my own research so far that I have been analyzing the interviews. And what I wanted to just, you know, like to tell you in terms of how I have learned that our sisters, how they relate to the headscarf and to the, you know, working environment and what it means to them when they are going to the workplace and as such.
Thank you, Linda. That was quite an insightful statement by you, because when I talk about integration, I almost always think from the first generation immigrant to Finland. So, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm educated. I have been studying here in Finland. And, you know, because I myself, you know, human beings tend to put themselves and their situations into that situation. So, but this is quite some new information what you're saying, that that is coming from converted Muslim sisters, that how they feel as the other,
Yes.
who have been born here, who have like, who are Finnish, you know, just because of the way they dress up, you know. So it's quite an insightful thing to know for me, actually. So yes. So in your like article I was reading, like you mentioned that integration is a two-way process. Would you like to elaborate more on it through your research?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if who has read the article, which is actually accessible in Finnish language, but it's a little bit difficult to find because it's on the website of the Labor Ministry. But what I'm gonna say is mostly about is from the article, and then some of my you know, some other notes. So integration, and you know, it's like such a buzzword, and you know, we've been using it today a lot, and we've been also talking about identity a lot, right? So in the modern social sciences, you know, it is widely accepted that identities, you know, generally of both individuals as well as collectives, they are social constructs. And individual identities, again, they are partly based on those collective identities. And this is also the reason why identities are not formed in a monologue, but in a dialogue, if not even in kind of like a struggle like processes against what our significant others want to define us to be. And when I say significant others, I don't mean, you know, our spouses as we normally say in the everyday language, but in the you know, critical theory literature, significant others, and social sciences also, significant others are mostly just our peers, our fellow citizens, our family members, our community members, work colleagues, whoever, you know, those who are close to us in our everyday lives. So so within this struggle, then it is the majority. When the majority is given the chance, they will define everyone who does not comply to their normative ideals of national belongings, and they will define them as the other. Okay, so identity is then kind of, after all, you know, one of the key components of a multicultural society, we can say, you know, and it arises much interest, you know, whose identity, what kind of identity, what are we, you know, what kind of identities do we allow in this multicultural society? What do we want to see? What do we don't want to see in the public space? So so Charles Taylor, he's a theorist of critical theory. He has argued, for example, that for the individual, the identity is dependent on the recognition given by others, and recognition is then what secures an individual's self-esteem and self-respect, you know. Now, this is connected to the integration as a two-way process. How? It is in the Finnish Act on the Promotion of Immigrant Integration defined as an interactive development of both the immigrant and the receiving society, during which the immigrant gains the necessary knowledge and skills that she or he needs in order to function in the society and in the labor market, while at the same time receives opportunities of preserving, you know, their own culture and language, you know, because they are supported by the state and other actors involved in that integration work. Okay, So on a general scale, the role of authorities and other actors in undertaking measures and providing services that promote such an inclusion of the immigrant into the Finnish society is also emphasized in this act. Now, there is this theorist called Heckman, and he defines intercultural contacts as possible ways for the host society to adapt to change. However, there is this research done by the Pew Research Forum, and it is called Being Christian in Western Europe, easy to find on Google, from dating back to May 2018. And it shows that Finnish people lack knowledge of Islam, that only 1/3 of the population know a Muslim personally, okay? So there is very much, we can say, lack of intercultural interactions that would actually promote the integration, right? By all the logic that we have, if we are connecting these dots that I have been talking about. So consequently, it seems that we can use this to explain why Finns also scored the highest when they were asked in the same study whether Islam is fundamentally incompatible with Finnish values. Yet the attitudes about Islam and violence were more nuanced, in the sense that only 17% thinks that all Muslims in Finland support extremism, for example. So, the practical knowledge of Finns, non-Muslim Finns, the practical knowledge and the attitudes do not always correspond to the, to their, let's say, everyday experiences, because there are no connections, there is no intercultural communication, for instance, right? So Heckman's classification of social integration includes 4 dimensions, and there is the structural, the cultural, the interactive, and the identificative. Okay, so it can be argued that these intercultural contacts that we lack in Finland and the identificative social integration go hand in hand. Firstly, this is because, okay, all 4 are of course interconnected, because the success in one, it will reflect the success in others and vice versa. For instance, when an immigrant is successfully integrated into the structures of the society, such as the labor market, it will empower the person financially and emotionally to also widen the social network, and hence to find friendships and establish relationships, which will lead to an increase of cultural skills and knowledge. And finally, he can feel herself or himself settle down and develop a feeling of belonging. Okay, so it's kind of like a circle, right, that comes together. Secondly, there is, we can say that the more intercultural contacts and established relationships an immigrant has, the easier he or she will be able to redefine his or her identity in relation to the others and establish a sense of belonging to that, let's say, Finnish society at large. Hence, it can safely also be argued, I think, that also for Muslim women, the relationships that they have with the rest of the society will define how they embrace themselves in the society as citizens. Okay, so the headscarf debates are a constant reminder for Muslim women that significant parts of their identity are not accepted and welcomed. Okay, so this negative discourse on the Islamic headscarf, especially when it's spread throughout state institutions, can stabilize within the minds of the wider public the image of us versus them, leaving little space within the processes for the Muslims to actively construct their identities that would be largely recognized. So it is important to note at this point, I think, that the headscarf as a religious practice can have not only spiritual importance for those adhering to it, but also for many immigrants, as Heckman has argued, religion might function also in diverse circumstances as a means of comfort, providing familiarity of structures and language within the process of integration, right? So this role of religion should be acknowledged as being supportive, like as a supportive tool rather than an obstacle in the integration process, and it provides the person feelings of safety and familiarity, you know, when acculturation to the host society, as we might say, has not yet fully been accomplished. Okay. However, it is also, I think, imperative to note that whereas identificative integration means any kind of self-conception based on identification with collectives and groups, the facilitation of the host society for maintaining of religious practices would send a positive message of acceptance. And lastly, I would like to conclude all of this by giving some insight into the debates on integration and identity from the perspective of convert Muslims, especially when it comes to problems that Muslim citizens face over accusations of disloyalty and unwillingness to integrate. The question that I would at this point pose is, where do converts fit in all of this? Like if immigrant Muslims, for example, when we're talking about Muslims' integration into the society, you know, and we are saying that Muslims are unwilling to integrate and they are, you know, they have double loyalties or whatever, they're too much connected to their, you know, homeland, this and that. Okay, so what about the converts? Which country are they supposed to choose from the vast array of countries located in the Muslim world, in the sense of, you know, having those double loyalties, right? Have they suddenly acquired new loyalties which are not connected, you know, to Finland as a country? Yeah, merely by changing their religious belief, you know? So as we have now also seen during this seminar, that amidst all of these, you know, debates and all of these, you know, struggles in terms of integration and whatever, Muslim citizens in Finland, they are living their lives like any other citizen. And in the post-immigration context, they may have decided to live their religion visibly while also engaging for the wider society in and outside of their communities as such. But this is never recognized as a good sign of integration, but rather problematized, and discursively it's also framed with the claim of, you know, creeping Sharia or Islamization, you know, in Finland. So I think there is a lot of irony in the political debates as a whole when Muslims and symbols of Islam enter these spheres of the society which used to be occupied only by those from the majority groups. And by this, I mean, you know, the non-Muslim, white, you know, and Muslims get out of the margins. You know, it should be a positive indicator of integration, but it's seen as a threat oftentimes, you know. So those who are criticizing Muslims of their alleged unwillingness to integrate are vocal about their dissatisfaction of Islam invading the society at the same time. So on one hand, you are seeing that, oh, Muslims, they don't integrate, Muslim women, they don't want to work, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then on the other hand, okay, now we will see Muslim women entering the public sphere, entering positions, entering the labor market. And suddenly it's like, oh, you know, they are invading the society. There's a creeping Sharia now. You know, look, she's wearing a headscarf. She's a politician. Maybe she's gonna, you know, advocate for some kind of a, you know, forcing all the Finnish women to wear the headscarf or some kind of, you know, nonsense, you know. So what the state understands as the normative model of integration, which is, you know, integration as a two-way street, is not considered as such by the anti-immigration and anti-Islam voices, but rather what they would demand is actual assimilation and not integration. So it has also have to be kept in mind that the convert context is very peculiar because, you know, they get forcibly sucked into this discourse that is concerned about integration of Muslims with an immigrant background, yeah, despite the fact that their religious identity in Finland has nothing to do with immigration or with the question of whether they are willing or ready to integrate into the so-called host society. My question is that, you know, or what I want to note is that what Finnish converts are faced with is not the questions of whether the culture from which they come from, you know, can be integrated into the Finnish society in the multicultural context, but whether the culture they were actually born in, which is the Finnish culture, whatever it may mean, you know, we can debate that, is allowed to be kept, you know, or whether these converts should still actually be identifying themselves with the Finnish culture. So this, as such, is a product of the process of racialization in which Islam is actually associated with a certain cultural group, and hence whoever identifies as a Muslim is categorized as the cultural and racial other. And that's the end of my answer to the last question. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. It was very nicely said. And also because when we talk about integration versus assimilation, integration is always supported, but there is a lot of weaknesses from within the integration system itself when we're talking about immigrants or Muslims trying to be a part of the Finnish society. So I always used to think about it as very black and white, you know, integration good, assimilation not that good, like you see in the UK and, you know, but yes, I hope with the passage of time that we are like we are aware enough to change this for the betterment of the as a minority group. Inshallah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So that was Linda's speech, that lecture that she wanted to share with us. Does anybody have any comments or any questions? Because I think the time is up, but we can take a little short comment or question if somebody wants to say something.
Many of the participants have also seemed to drop out.
Actually, they made they said excuses that they were busy or they had to go to another webinar or event.
Right.
So, no, but they were not right away. I mean, they were here for quite some time while we were talking. So thank you everybody for today, and thank you all the panelists. Thank you, Linda, and for everybody who could make it today, this event successful. And inshallah, I was recording it and I would be uploading it to a 9-minute YouTube channel. So if you have missed it or one of your friends who wants to see it again, this event, it would be uploaded soon over the weekend, inshallah. So thank you, and I hope like the project is ending, but we wish to continue the related activities as much as we can with Amal voluntarily, and you can obviously, everybody can be a part of it if they want to. So thank you all for coming, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was good to see you.
Yeah, same here. Okay, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Salam.
Assalamu alaikum.